All right, you and I are diving into a world where 5 years ago, the Great Blight changed everything. Vile beasts flooded the kingdom, turning every living soul into nothing more than prey for their endless hunger. High atop the ruins of a tower, we see a young man named Arthur hiding and watching the streets. Only 40% of the realm remains, protected by awakened knights. Arthur listens to a communication relic to pass the time. The voice on the relic mocks the knights, claiming humanity only survives because of these massive iron walls. A sudden roar makes Arthur stand. Below, he sees monsters wandering the narrow streets, hunting for anything that moves. With one glance, he counts 6 Tier 3 beasts and 1 massive S-rank demon, exactly as Sir Julian predicted. Arthur raises his looking glass. Focusing on a deserted courtyard nearby, he whispers that things are finally about to get real. Now watch this. Yellow lightning suddenly cracks the air right where he's looking. A void rift is opening. Amidst those jagged golden sparks, a passage in reality begins to tear wide open before his very eyes. Arthur watches closely, remembering the legend that powerful travelers often return through these very gates from other worlds. Right on cue, a man leaps from the blinding light, landing perfectly on the cobblestones below. Shielding his eyes as he breathes the air, the traveler shouts in pure joy, finally home after a lifetime away. But his arrival immediately catches the attention of the nearby beasts, which start charging toward his position. The man grimaces, realizing he has barely returned to his home and is already facing a certain death. He stares at a twisted, multi-limbed horror, wondering how such a demon could even exist in this land. Up on the roof, Arthur just smiles. This is exactly the moment he has been waiting for. A green beast prepares a crushing blow, while Arthur watches and whispers that the show has finally begun. The traveler is badly wounded, and Arthur realizes it takes massive strength to face a Tier 3 beast alone. It usually takes 10 elite knights to face it. The man calls upon his ultimate move, the Cradle of Swords, summoning 1,000 blades of light. With a single gesture, he rains down holy steel, piercing the beast in 100 different places at once. Arthur is stunned. The man has wiped out 6 demons in an hour, all alone, leaving only the S-rank Titan. That beast is a nightmare that even 100 Grandmaster Knights couldn't hope to kill. Trust me, you and I are seeing something special. A true sword saint in action hits different. The Titan lunges with a lethal strike, and for a second, the traveler's eyes widen in genuine shock. Arthur knows he just needs to wait a little longer for all that divine power to be his. The saint blurs through the air, dodging the claws and preparing a counterattack that lights up the sky. He uses his ghost step skill, instantly followed by a demonic blade dance that cuts the air in jagged zigzags. With one final, beautiful strike, the Titan falls silent, and the battle is over. Arthur is buzzing. That fight was beyond belief, but the saint has collapsed, and now it is time to move. He rushes down, knowing everything is following the path Master Cain laid out for him long ago. He reaches the fallen hero, checking his pulse. He remembers that saving a saint leads to gaining their legendary power. The sight is grim, and the man on the ground starts coughing up his strawberry juice in the dirt. Arthur hesitates, wondering how to save him. The wounded man's eyes flutter open, asking for the year. Arthur tells him it is August 1735. The man winces. He spent 30 years away, while only 5 passed here. Purely worried. Arthur tells him to stay still, but the hero knows his time is up, and he cannot go on. Arthur realizes the truth. The man won't see the sunset. He used every drop of power to open that rift. Silence hangs between them as Arthur's expression softens. Accepting his end, the knight makes one final request: find his family and protect them if they still breathe. He presses a photo into Arthur's hand. The boy looks at it, whispering that he can barely protect himself. But the man isn't asking for free. He is offering all his power to the boy in exchange. He just needs a name to begin the transfer. Trust me, in this dying world, everything is about to change. You and I are about to witness a life defined by struggle, starting with our hero beaten and bleeding on the cold dirt. In front of him, a knight says he has finally found Arthur. It is the year 208, and the knight sneers at him, telling him to stop squirming like an eel while blood pools from a gut wound. Realizing there is no escape this time, Arthur asks his executioner who sold him out and led the knights to his hiding spot. Smiling like a devil, the villain reveals the name was Julian, who sold him for 1 million gold and a promise of safety. Hearing this, Arthur screams at the name of the traitor. Raising his blade, the knight says that since the boy has his answers, it is time to finish the job. Suddenly, Arthur realizes those words are familiar, and he desperately reaches for a glowing stone, stating that this artifact was his only chance to flip his destiny. Seeing the object, the villain does not even flinch. The boy reveals it is a Chronos stone. Now watch this part closely. As the guards rush in, a blinding light erupts from the stone, signaling the end of his old life. Arthur smiles and says he will hunt down General Curtis in the past. While drifting through time, his only wish is to return to the days when his siblings were still alive. The gamble pays off, and we find our hero back 23 years in the past. The world is still falling apart, and he is already meeting the traveler who promised to grant him a power that could change everything. The two men shake hands to begin the magical transfer of strength. Arthur vows that this timeline will be different. A wild gale picks up as the system asks the dying warrior if he wants his physical body to be erased forever. Accepting his fate, the man confirms the command, while the protagonist begins absorbing every single one of his legendary abilities. When the transfer hits 20%, the man on the ground warns the boy to stay focused. He explains that even though the process has started, any distraction could cause the entire ritual to fail. Pay attention here. A massive creature suddenly looms behind him, threatening to end everything before it even starts. Laughing at the irony, the hunter mutters that life is a mess. He recognizes the monster as the same beast he thought was defeated. The dying warrior, Cal, jokes that heroes usually go home and live happily ever after in stories before warning that he must surrender his powers very soon. He tells Arthur to run immediately because there is no other choice, and if life is a disaster, you just have to survive the wreckage. His final piece of advice is for Arthur to adapt and stay alive by any means necessary. To everyone's surprise, the boy grabs a heavy iron bar and says he is not crazy, just tired of running away. He stands his ground against the beast, but strangely, the creature does not strike. It simply turns around and walks away, leaving him stunned. Dropping the bar, he admits he thought the pressure was going to kill him. The veteran hunter tells him that he is incredibly lucky. But Arthur replies it was only because the monster was already dying from its previous wounds. The man vanishes, telling him to keep his word and save his family if he wants to avoid being haunted. Arthur watches in horror. The transfer ends, but the system warns that his current body is too weak and must be completely rebuilt through a brutal process of awakening. The final warning catches him off guard. This reconstruction is going to be incredibly painful. Immediately, Arthur feels a sickening crack in his neck and realizes his tough act is over. Every bone feels like it is shattering while his skin is being torn apart. Dropping the act, he looks to the sky and screams in agony. The following morning, a man in a carriage approaches the area while whistling. Suddenly, he spots something strange ahead. It is our hero, busy loading heavy wooden crates onto the back of a wagon. Seeing his friend Cal approaching, Arthur asks what brings him to this part of the woods. Cal asks the same thing, reminding him that he was the one who begged for the day off. Arthur lies, saying a monster trapped him there overnight. Shocked, his friend asks if he has a death wish for trying to sleep in such a dangerous place. Shrugging it off, Arthur tells him to just forget about it and move on. He then points out that Cal is far too early to be here without the rest of the guard. The man claims he just started waking up early, but Arthur knows he is lying. He can sense that his colleague is hiding something very important at this location. We learn that Cal tried to master the mimic grasp ability before, but failed miserably. You and I just saw the start of a legendary rise. Trust me, he is going to make them all pay. All right, stick with me, because one mistake ruined this man's life when he foolishly revealed his copy ability during registration. This sparked pure rage in nobles, who could not stand the thought of their precious skills being stolen so easily. After a quick goodbye and starting up his carriage, Arthur glances at the passenger seat where 3 silver crystals and 4 bronze crystals sit, items he pilfered from Sir Cedric even though he feels guilty for taking them. Now he has to figure out a way to use them, since selling such stolen goods is impossible. We then learn that, after Cedric awakened with the power of the Great King, he failed to secure those mysterious stones. When he returned the next morning to claim them, they were gone, leaving him with a regret that would haunt him forever. That is why Arthur planned to snatch the loot early, thinking he might be able to pawn off basic monster cores without questions. But if he tries to move a high-level core, he will end up drawing the eyes of the Knight Academy and the Royal Inquisition, who will launch a full investigation. In the worst case, he will lose everything and be forced to sell these legendary crystals for mere pennies. Staring at the screen, he concludes there is only one way out. Watch closely, he needs to register as an awakened immediately. Someone answers his call and asks the reason for the sudden contact. With a grin, the boy tells Silas he has coin and wants to grab some ale, offering to pay for the drinks if the guy helps him. In the safe zone of Southport, Arthur meets a merchant inside a building. The man offers 600 for the loot, but the boy asks for a higher price. Feeling a bit awkward, the buyer claims these stones used to fetch 800, but the market is dying. Frustrated, the boy wonders what to do next. As the man grumbles about the shrinking population and rising costs, 2 children suddenly burst into the room crying. Throwing their arms around the boy, they sob, fearing he had finally abandoned them to the streets. Arthur kneels down to look Alara, his little sister, and Liam, his younger brother, directly in their tearful eyes. Pointing a finger, he sternly asks why they are not at the monastery school where they belong. The man interrupts, telling the boy not to scold the little ones who only came because they were terrified for his safety. Now, think about this for a second. The man warns Arthur to consider what will happen to his siblings if he ever gets hurt. Arthur tells the kids to dry their eyes and head home for lunch. Their faces light up instantly at the mention of grilled meat. Alara then tugs his sleeve, mentioning the old landlady from the floor above wants to see him about the months of unpaid rent. They all pile into the carriage and head back to their small apartment just as he promised. Arthur takes over the cooking, sitting down with his siblings, the elderly landlady, and her teenage grandson. The old woman asks why he spent so much on a feast. Smiling, the boy explains he stopped by the butcher and wanted to share. Worried for him, she says he should have saved the coin to feed his growing brother and sister. Without a word, Arthur hands over an envelope filled with the back rent. Shocked, the woman offers to take only half, knowing his struggle. Surprised by her kindness, our hero insists it is not necessary. But the grandson says that in these dark times they must look out for each other, so he should just take the deal. His grandmother smacks him over the head with a spoon, shouting that the house belongs to her and he should keep quiet. Rubbing his head with a laugh, the boy jokes that the house will be his anyway once she passes on, earning another threat. The old lady sighs, complaining that her stomach is in knots because of Thomas and his reckless behavior. He refuses to study his books and spends all day getting into trouble while pretending to be a scholar. The boy argues that he is just preparing for the day he awakens so he can train with real knights, claiming traditional schooling is completely useless now. Annoyed, the lady asks Arthur to talk some sense into her grandson, since the youth actually respects him. Suddenly, the boy's device buzzes. Stepping onto the balcony to answer, he hears a familiar voice on the line. Silas says he spoke with his guild master, and while the man agreed to an interview, Arthur must work for free at first. If he proves his worth, he might be brought on as a permanent squire for the raiding party. The protagonist agrees instantly, though his friend is confused why he would suddenly want to become a lowly porter. Hiding the truth, the boy claims his old labor job is drying up and he needs a new way to survive. Silas tells him to meet at the Iron Wall gate the next morning at 7:30 sharp. Hanging up, our hero knows the plan is working. Trust me, you and I are about to see him copy a legendary skill and change everything. Stick with me, a commoner is about to become a legend. Alaric calls him. Caspian waves with a smile, but his mind is already locked on the secret plan. Alaric introduces him to Sir Cedric, their lead knight, confirming this is the talented recruit. Cedric welcomes him as the veteran of the group. Caspian reaches out for a handshake, claiming he is eager to learn and serve alongside such a seasoned warrior. Cedric returns the grip warmly, completely unaware that his legendary skills were just stolen in seconds. A glowing prompt appears for Caspian, allowing him to select 3 skills from the knight. He instantly picks the Iron Skin, Shield Bash, and Overload abilities for himself. The system confirms the ritual is complete. Caspian marveled at how a simple handshake granted him the defensive prowess of a master knight. He is finally ready for what comes next in this journey. Standing before him, the knight in shining armor watches. He finds the lingering smile unsettling. Now watch this. Alaric asks why he is grinning like a madman while still holding the captain's hand in such a strange, awkward fashion. Easing the awkward tension, Cedric laughs, remarking that the lad has a truly powerful grip. Flustered, Caspian releases his hand and offers an apology. Cedric shrugs it off, gesturing toward the armored wagon waiting for them just down the road to begin their journey. Near the carriage, 2 guards chat while a noblewoman and another archer carefully inspect the tension of their longbows for the coming hunt. The coachman is set, while a distracted girl nearby stares intently at her glowing magical scroll. Cedric orders Caspian to greet his new comrades before they depart. Privately, Caspian mocks their basic skills, knowing he will soon replace them with the legendary powers of high-tier heroes. He decides that for now, he must harvest their skills anyway. The heavy wagon lurches forward as the team sets off toward the monster-infested ruins of the Old Kingdom. While seated, Caspian notes he has already stolen 13 unique skills, including 3 rare healing spells. We return to the girl from earlier, who is still completely distracted by her magical scroll. Watching her, Caspian reveals he also swiped a mapping skill, 2 hunting techniques, and 7 different merchant traits. You and I both know the real power comes from combining all these stolen arts at once. In the ruined city, Scale, beasts with purple tongues charge forward. Sir Cedric raises his massive shield, blocking their path and taunting the monsters as they crash against his iron defense. Caspian watches, realizing that mixing skills from different classes will make him an unstoppable force of nature on the battlefield. Archer Elias joins the fray, firing 3 arrows in rapid succession. Each shaft strikes the Scale, beast with lethal precision, pinning it to the crumbling stone wall. Cedric shouts for Valkyrie to end the skirmish immediately. Perched atop a nearby rooftop, the girl calmly signals her understanding of the order. She releases a whistling arrow that pierces the beast directly through its glowing red eye. The monster collapses. Cedric praises the team, noting that only 2 of the foul creatures remain. Staying in the shadows, Caspian wonders if he should test his new powers just for the thrill. Ultimately, he decides to wait until the hunt is over to keep things simple. Hours pass as the sun sets. Cedric commends the successful hunt and praises Caspian for his incredible stamina, while lugging heavy monster remains across the battlefield all day long. Cedric turns as another exhausted porter stumbles over, dropping his heavy rucksack and swearing that he simply cannot take another step. Alaric brags that Caspian was actually legendary back at the academy for his lethal fists. Cedric asks if he means the school from before the Great Catastrophe. Nodding, Alaric claims that even without formal training, Caspian outshone every knight and athlete there. Caspian overhears the praise and blushes when Cedric jokingly asks if he was some sort of street thug. Alaric defends him, saying he only fought those who deserved it and dreamed of being an investigator. Cedric smiles and hands Caspian a leather pouch containing his gold for the day. Caspian tries to refuse the payment, saying it is unnecessary. Cedric insists he take the gold, noting that without his hard work, the mission would have been far more difficult for everyone involved. Which leads the captain to ask if he would like to continue being a squire. Smiling, our boy says he will think about it. Cedric departs, promising they will cross paths soon. Alaric invites Caspian to a feast at the tavern, but Caspian declines, claiming he has other important business tonight. Curious, Alaric teases him, asking if this mysterious business is actually a secret date with a lady. Some more time passes, and we see the towering headquarters of the Royal Knights Union. So where do we go from here? One clerk is terrified by what she just heard. All right, you and I are about to dive into the story of a man who cheated death to save his family. Alistair stands before the clerk, who asks him to repeat his request. He is here to register as a gifted guardian, but she just stares. He nods, confirming his powers just awakened earlier this very morning. She looks at him with pure disbelief. In this kingdom, a new guardian appearing out of nowhere is basically unheard of. Feeling the tension, Alistair asks if there is something wrong with his claim. She explains he is the first guardian seen in months. To continue his registration, she just needs his royal identification papers. He quickly hands over his papers and points toward the benches where the other candidates are currently sitting. The girl tells him to sit and wait. As he waits, a wave of heavy sadness begins to wash over his face. He rests his head in his hands. Now pay attention here. This is where we see the pain he is hiding. He remembers waking up after his regression. He thinks of the dungeon and his siblings dying in that carriage accident. It was devastating. That tragedy broke him for days and turned him into a villain. But this time, everything is going to be completely different. Seeing them alive in the past filled his heart with joy. At first, he really thought it was all just a dream. Once he realized it was real, he swore never to lose the people he loves again. He will protect everyone with his life. He opens his system to check the latest reports on his status and resistance. He notices his resistance stat is massive, ranging from 6,000 to 15,000. His strength is also quite high, which means his start was actually pretty good for a first awakening. Suddenly, a notification pops up saying core generation is in progress. He is completely baffled by this. Alistair does not know what a core is, but he decides to wait and find out. Someone calls his name. He turns to find the receptionist standing next to a smiling man in a doctor's coat, looking quite pleased. She returns his identity papers and says the verification process was a total success. Now he just needs to follow the doctor to begin his physical testing. The man introduces himself as Julian. Alistair offers his own name and says it is truly a pleasure to meet him. Julian says he prepared everything in advance so they can begin the evaluation immediately. There is no time to waste. In the elevator, Alistair secretly tries to copy the man's special abilities. But the man isn't gifted. It's strange, because he assumed everyone working for the association would have abilities. In the testing room, Julian explains the 3 stages. First, they will measure his resistance and strength using this device. Alistair lies down, with several wires attached to his body. The doctor warns that the measurement is starting and will take 10 minutes. He just needs to stay calm and relax. The second stage tests his unique shield skills. A bit later, Alistair is standing in the arena with his heavy shield in hand. Here's the part you and I need to watch closely. He prepares to fight the training monster while the staff watches. Julian announces the aggression test is starting. Alistair just needs to strike the target in front of him. Our hero obeys instantly. The man tells him he can feel free to strike the dummy wherever he likes. Alistair smashes the target's head with his shield, leaving the doctors completely stunned. That power is real. Time for the third stage. The doctor hands Alistair a cup of hot, steaming coffee. He explains that due to a scheduling issue with the evaluators, The final part is delayed 2 days. Taking the cup, Alistair asks if his tests were okay. The doctor confirms everything went perfectly. He just needs to go to the reception to pick up the basic equipment. Alistair can't believe it. The day has finally come where he will receive the official standard gear of the association. Julian admits he is worried about the lack of guardians and healers. Alistair listens carefully while he drinks. Most people choosing to awaken go for safer support roles. Nobody wants to be on the front lines anymore. Awakening stones are getting harder to find, especially the ones needed for guardians and healers. He pauses to think. Even with a stone, success isn't guaranteed. Plus, in his past as a criminal, Alistair could never have registered his powers. The doctor apologizes for getting carried away. Alistair stands up and says it is no problem at all. Julian says the boy must show up for the final test. Those details will be sent via text message the very next day. Trust me, this is just the start. Alistair reaches out. Arthur stares back, then grins as he returns the handshake, eager to work with the man. Outside, the evening shadows stretch long as Arthur walks down the cobblestone street while answering his ringing phone. Julian asks what happened, but our boy just says it is nothing serious. Stick with me. Arthur just dropped a huge bombshell, telling Julian he has awakened as a vanguard earlier today. Glancing through a shop window, Arthur insists he would never joke about something as big as this. He steps inside a dusty shop, while his friend finally starts to believe the crazy news he just heard. Julian laughs, totally stunned because it is just unbelievable. They were together just hours ago, and now Arthur is suddenly a vanguard. Getting no reply, Arthur asks if Julian is still on the line. Our hero is distracted by a mantis leg relic model that costs an incredible 3 million gold. He blames the signal for the silence, then mentions his earlier visit to the Knights Guild. He reveals the reason for the call, asking if he can join one more hunt just to observe. Julian asks why he bothers, since he already saw how the whole process works. Arthur explains he was too busy lugging gear to watch Lord Cedric's every move, but then he suddenly spots something in the shop that makes him very happy. Julian says he will check with the team leader and call him back with an answer. Arthur thanks him and tells the seller that he would like to buy the bracelet, along with the exit solution he mentioned. He recognizes this as the legendary relic, once owned by the infamous outlaw Jaden Russell. In his life before the return, Arthur was rank 8 and learned the secret method to find this relic and the special potions while sharing drinks with a mysterious man. Without a word, the seller stares coldly, knowing that this item grants a 30% efficiency boost to all abilities once it is activated. Watch this closely. Arthur finally breaks the silence, asking why the man is staring at him like that. The seller apologizes for the intrusion and asks if Arthur registered as an awakened today. Arthur says yes, and then, out of nowhere, the man raises his fist, as if he is about to strike Arthur down by surprise. He stops his arm right in front of Arthur's face, grinning because he knew he was right. The man reveals he is also an awakened with the power of teleportation. Relieved, Arthur plays it cool, even though his heart is absolutely racing inside his chest. As they bump fists, he decides he should definitely copy that teleportation skill for himself. Another man named Master 𝒒𝒐𝒏𝒆 appears with the powerful ability of spatial manipulation. Arthur thinks to himself that this is another spatial ability he would really like to have. You saw that too, right? Being a vanguard makes Arthur absolute royalty among the high-tier awakened, and the men next to him know exactly how rare his power really is. Arthur asks if running this shop is just a side job for powerful men like them. The two men deny it and say that working here is actually their primary job. The long-haired clerk explains that with so many support class people, it is actually hard to find a job. So they decided to open this shop to sell rare antiques and supplies for other awakened. He hands over the solution, charging 300,000 gold for both items. Arthur smiles, finally holding every single material he needs to complete his plan. He has the solution, the crystals, and the strawberry juice to link all the objects together. Back home, the bracelet glows a deep, magical purple. He actually did it. He slides the accessory onto his arm, revealing its true name, Twilight. Suddenly, a message pops up notifying him that the 38th relic among the 101 created by the system is now active and has been registered as a legendary combined artifact alongside his other items. Since Arthur is a user of the original system, the relic has been fully unlocked. Arthur wonders what the deal is with these 101 ancient artifacts. His phone rings, giving him a massive jump in the quiet room. It is Julian, calling to say he finally spoke with Lord Cedric. Lord Cedric refuses to believe Arthur is a vanguard until he sees it, and you and I are going to find out if he can prove it. All right, you and I are about to watch our hero Arthur breathe a sigh of relief after a close call. Suddenly, that void gate power he swiped kicks into gear, and a shimmering portal rips open the air. Terrified but curious, he reaches through as Sir Cedric warns him not to be late. The next morning, bags packed, Arthur promises to be at the rendezvous right on time before heading out. Morning arrives, and the whole squad is assembled at the 7th bastion just like they planned. A voice shouts out, leaving everyone there totally stunned. It is Arthur, rocking full guardian gear from the guild and wielding a massive, gleaming shield. Cedric stares wide-eyed at the new suit, while Silas notes he actually became a vanguard. In total shock, the leader demands to know how he pulled that off in a single day. Turning red and lying through his teeth, Arthur claims his powers just awakened on the walk home. The captain admits it is impressive, seeing as natural awakenings are becoming incredibly rare these days. Arthur nods, mentioning his final trial is tomorrow, and asks if the veteran knight would be willing to give him some pointers. Cedric sighs, unsure if there is much he can actually teach a natural talent like him. But he offers one golden rule from his years on the front lines. Gripping his shield, he asks if the lad knows the real reason he carries it. He explains it is not because he was born a guardian, but because he actively chose that path. See, when you are staring down beasts, there is always a moment where your body just gives out. So remember that your true strength comes from your iron will, not just your levels or stats. With the lecture finished, the party marches toward the valley. Right in the middle of the glade, there is a monster that looks like a hybrid bear and armadillo caught in a deep slumber. Now pay attention here, this is where the hunt begins. Cedric asks Silas if the target is locked. The scout confirms it is a great shellback. Silas gives the signal, and the operation is officially a go. He orders Julian to verify the beast position once more. Without a second thought, the boy starts mapping the terrain. Studying the map, the leader briefs the team on their target, explaining that shellbacks are slow and weak on offense, but possess the thick armor of a much higher rank monster. Nervous, Beatrice wonders if they have enough firepower. Her friend groans that the fight has not even started, and he is already wiped out. Another rookie, looking pale, admits he is terrified the beast will come charging straight for his throat. Rallying them, Cedric reminds everyone the prey is sluggish and insists that his team is the finest group of veterans he has ever led. Moving closer, the long-haired healer Beatrice jokes that if they are that good, then her job today should be a total breeze. Silas turns to Julian to check the traps, and the boy confirms everything is set. Heaving his shield, he tells Alara and Arthur to stay put while the rest of the group moves into position. Arthur nods, confirming he understands the order. As the team moves out, Arthur feels a sense of dread. He is certain his friends were slaughtered in his past life because a second, hidden monster suddenly appeared out of nowhere. If it was just a shellback, this squad should have been fine. He has to uncover the real reason they died. You know that feeling. Arthur looks around and realizes something here is seriously wrong. Back in the fray, Cedric asks the archer Alara if she is set. She gives the nod, and he commands her to open fire. She fires an arrow, striking the monster-armored shell with a loud crack. She shouts that she is rotating to the next position as planned. The beast stands up, absolutely furious, while Cedric roars for the whole team to prepare for combat. Right beside him, the rest of the warriors shout their understanding. Rising on its hind legs, the creature prepares a devastating blow. Sticking to the script, Alara rains down 3 precise, stinging arrows. The hybrid beast roars in pain, showing that those arrows definitely hit the mark. Arthur realizes the plan is working. Silas shouts praise, reminding the archer to stay back and maintain his distance. But the hot-headed archer decides to charge in, leaving Silas panicked because that was never part of the strategy. Eye to eye with the beast, the boy yells that he is tired of poking its back and wants to end this now. His arrows pierce the creature's soft armpit, sending it into a frenzy. Cedric screams at him to stop being a fool and listen. But the kid just mocks it, claiming the monster is far too slow to ever catch him. He did not realize he was talking too much until the beast smashed him with its fists, sending him crashing hard into a wall. Horrified, Cedric screams his friend's name and charges into the fray, his own temper finally reaching the breaking point. You and I just watched the real fight begin. He leaps high, slamming his blade into the shell as sparks fly everywhere. All right, stick with me. You and I are about to see a rookie knight struggle as his steel sword fails to even scratch a monster. The ironclad crawler turns its gaze, focusing back on the squire it just tossed aside. Facing certain death, the boy desperately raises his arms against those razor-sharp, jagged claws. But Sir Kay lunges forward to save him, slamming his shield into the beast with all his might. The blow dazes the creature, but it is only for a second before it snaps back to life. Kay orders Thomas to the front while the archers fire from the rear. He unleashes his magic, swirling blue waves of energy. The beast keeps howling, but Kay just smiles. It is time to finish this in his aggressive stance. The crawler swings a massive paw, but it just crashes harmlessly against Kay's steel shield. Suddenly, a whistling arrow streaks by, and the lead archer signals to Jane that it is finally time to strike. From the rafters, the huntress rains down a barrage of arrows, peppering the beast's ugly face. Enraged, the beast curls into a spiked ball, entering its iron shell mode. Kay commands Charles to begin the heavy melee assault immediately. Now pay attention here. As they pin the beast, an even deadlier threat is creeping up on them. Slamming the beast, the vanguard tells everyone to keep up the pressure until he spots an opening. Arthur's friend huffs as he swings, complaining that just looking at that thick hide is exhausting. Young Arthur watches from the sidelines, absorbing every detail. The healer whispers that if this plan holds, the hunt ends today. She admits she only wants to join because ironclad crawlers are so rare in this kingdom. You are lucky to see one twice a year. Arthur asks how many times they've faced a beast like that, and she says only 3 times recently. She smiles at his curiosity, while he just apologizes for asking so many questions. The maiden hands him a magical lens called the Oracle's Sight, saying it will help him see the truth. Forged by the Royal Guild, this relic will let him study the battle, so he is ready for tomorrow's difficult night trials. Sliding the glass over his eyes, Arthur realizes he can actually see the monster's vital stats. She explains the scales to him. The beast has 30,000 health, and that shell, 150,000. Arthur realizes breaking it is going to take forever. Suddenly, the commander screams. He realizes the magical life signals for the 4 scouts on the East Ridge have completely vanished from the map. I know what you are thinking. This just turned into a total disaster. Terrified, Arthur asks if the Oracle is telling the truth. Across the ruins, a massive stone pillar begins to tremble, spiderweb cracks racing up the surface. The wall explodes with a crash, and out crawls the dreaded Mantis King, its jagged claws dripping with fresh, crimson blood. As the new nightmare looms over them, Arthur realizes they're in way over their heads. Still fighting, the commander desperately asks how long until the new monster reaches them. Coldly, the blonde squire replies, at most, 2 minutes. Kay bellows for Arthur and the others to retreat immediately and find some heavy cover. Arthur finally realizes why his gut was screaming that something was wrong. He grabs the healer's hand, telling her they must move before they are trapped. She nods in panic, but notices he's running toward the commander instead of fleeing. He shouts that because the distance is so short, retreating safely is practically impossible for them. 𝒏𝒏 roars, asking why the boy is not following his orders to flee. Arthur grips his shield, yelling that they cannot run, that Mantis is way too fast. If both monsters join forces, things will get incredibly ugly. They will be trapped and slaughtered unless they hold the line together right now. With murder in its eyes, the Mantis King raises its jagged claws for a strike. Standing his ground, Arthur says they only have one choice: hold out as long as humanly possible. Kay screams, asking if he's lost his mind. Does he think being a vanguard is a game? He's just a rookie who's never fought. While they bicker, the crawler hisses and snaps its jaws at them. Kay warns that a total beginner who has never even sparred with a master cannot survive this. But the mantis is done waiting. It lunges forward with a screeching strike. Arthur braces behind his heavy shield, shouting back that once he earns his knightly spurs, he will do this daily. Trust me, you and I are about to see if this rookie really has what it takes. All right, stick with me as Leo sprints while the scythe beast hammers his shield. He swings at the monster's head, leaving his comrades absolutely stunned by his sheer grit and determination. Hugo calls him a complete fool, shouting that this is a life-or-death battle and not just some simple training test. Unfazed, Leo says he knows that, but they have much bigger problems to worry about right now. Which is the ancient behemoth looming behind them that could wipe everyone out in one single, massive blow. The massive iron shell monster strikes the group without mercy. Julian holds his shield high to block the blow and tells Kaelin to join Leo as a vanguard to buy them some time. Kaelin obeys instantly and rushes to help our young hero. Gripping his shield, the captain begs Giles to stay and help hold the beast. Suddenly, the creature makes a wild move, tossing Julian across the battlefield like a doll. From the dirt, he yells for Giles to trigger the binding trap on that behemoth as fast as possible. The trap whirs toward the beast at high speed, slamming heavy chains around its legs to lock it down. Pay attention here, that trap will only hold for 5 minutes. Scrambling up, the captain realizes they are pinned between two monsters with every exit blocked. It is a desperate trap. With all his strength, Leo uses his shield to strike and defend, while Kaelin provides cover by firing arrows every 5 seconds. But the blows do nothing to the great scythe beast. Refusing to yield, Leo strikes again, finally making the monster glare at him with those glowing red eyes. Suddenly, a projectile slams into its head, catching even Leo by surprise. From the rooftops, Kaelin cheers for Lady Alara, but she warns there is no time for praise. The mantis spots its attacker and decides to hunt the girl down immediately. Leo screams for the girl to flee immediately, but she realizes she is trapped as the mantis claws reach her balcony window. It's too late. Alara takes a direct hit, leaving her badly wounded on the floor. Below them, Kaelin screams her name in pure agony. He fires arrow after arrow to distract the beast, but it is no use. All hope is lost. The panicked healer turns to Leo, desperate for any kind of plan. Looking at his bracelet, Leo realizes he was far too careless. He forgot he would not become a god overnight or keep his artifact active with simple shield strikes. Now, you and I need to watch as he checks his system to save her. He scans the data glowing on his ethereal screen. He thinks about using skills to boost the bracelet by 50%, but the risk is insane. With no other way, he decides to do it, even if the cost is far too high. Waves of brilliant blue light begin radiating all around his body. The energy reaches the window, just as the mantis prepares to execute the fallen and bleeding Alara, who cannot move. Leo prays with all his strength that his gamble will lure the beast back down to the ground. The young healer knows she must act. She cannot simply stand by while her friend faces death alone. She sprints away, leaving Leo alone. He looks ahead and realizes his bold strategy finally worked. Julian calls for Alara to retreat, but Leo insists that she will be fine. Julian is baffled, but Leo explains he has successfully managed to lure the monster away from her. Not believing it, the captain asks what Leo is talking about, but the boy is already charging straight at the giant insect. While slamming his shield, he thinks it is way too risky to keep this power active with just basic attacks. He decides he must unleash his 𝒂𝒊𝒕 abilities because he has no other choice. He triggers Body of Destruction and his Vanguard skill, leaping just in time to dodge a lethal strike from the massive insect. With his skills active, Leo's damage is now equal to a top-tier warrior's. Suddenly, an intense sensation begins to take over his whole body. He smiles, remembering that he felt this many times before his great rebirth. It's as if every cell in his body has awakened, just like back when he was a top-tier Dark Knight, a feeling that let him rank 8th among all villains. This power is known as hyperperception. Leo strikes with his old instincts, and the mantis, armored legs finally begin to shatter and crack. Inside the tower, Alara finally stands, but as she reaches for her bow, she drops her weapon. So what do you and I think about this? Will she survive that wound as her strength and blood fade away? All right, let's watch a healer with some real attitude. Haley starts mending her friend, telling her to stay quiet to avoid distraction. The archer snaps back, saying she should be aiding Arthur instead of fixing minor scratches. But Haley insists that the boy will be fine. She can't even heal him if his health is already full. Peering out the window, she calls Arthur a lunatic, noting he fights just like the captain since he hasn't taken any damage yet. We shift back to Arthur, who is absolutely tearing it up, showing off his insane combat strength. While Kane and Hugh struggle against the Iron Titan, the massive creature lets out a roar of pure fury. But the captain shouts that its magical shield is finally starting to give way. He tells the boys not to waste time with basic swings. They need to unleash their skills before the trap breaks. The beast, almost free, lunges at him. Now watch this part carefully. It is the moment he has been waiting for. Just before the blow lands, Arthur charges in to strike first, while someone warns that the trap has only 10 seconds left. Shouting at the top of his lungs, the captain tells Hugh that the time has come. Taking the signal, the young man draws his blade and triggers a massive critical hit on the monster. A blue beam of energy tears through the monster's body as Hugh prays for the kill. It works. The Titan dissolves into a pile of dust. Hugh lets out a cheer, telling the entire squad that this side is officially clear. Standing over the remains, Arthur's friend spots a glowing red crystal and realizes they didn't just get loot. They got a rare skill card. The captain shuts down the celebration, telling them there is no time for that and ordering Hugh to assist Arthur. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. Arthur is absolutely crushing this blade mantis, drawing trails of green slime while the other knights watch in total disbelief. Fighting alone, Arthur glances back and tells Kane to clear out if he is already done with his part. Kane stops in his tracks, calling Arthur crazy for not only fighting alone, but giving orders now, too. Agreeing with Arthur, Hugh tells him to treat this as practical experience since he seems to be handling it well. Arthur asks if he's sure, and the man says yes, then asks the group if anyone has any objections. Everyone is on board, but Alara mentions she is not the type to let a debt go unpaid. She fires an arrow from the rooftop, but it misses the agile beast. Determined to end it, Arthur leaps. Ready for the finishing blow, he slams his shield directly into the monster's head, which stops resisting and collapses. Mouth agape, Hugh asks Kane if he's absolutely sure his friend is just a shield bearer. The battle ends as night finally falls over the outskirts of the kingdom. The captain tells everyone to hurry and pack up, knowing they're exhausted but wary of more monsters appearing. Arthur listens while scrubbing the green slime off his heavy shield. Kane approaches and asks him if he has ever tapped into that power before. Confused, Arthur asks what he means. Kane clarifies he's talking about hyperperception, remembering how Arthur used it back in their school duels. Arthur stays silent, but his friend insists there is no way he pulled that off without using the skill. He checks if the boy is okay, recalling the nasty headaches he used to get after using it. Stowing his gear, Arthur says he's fine, likely thanks to his new awakening. Kane calls him lucky and demands a beer tonight. His communication stone suddenly glows. Arthur says it must wait. He needs to be with his siblings. Hugh sneaks up and asks who he really is. No way a rookie shield bearer could ever fight with that kind of veteran skill. Arthur just shrugs and says maybe. Kane gets nervous, worried Arthur is about to say something reckless. But Arthur just says the adrenaline from the danger must have given him superhuman strength for a moment. Not buying it for a second, the captain asks if he really thinks they are that gullible. Arthur goes quiet. The captain then turns to the rest of the squad with a serious look. He states that today, Arthur defeated a beast alone, but he's not an officially registered knight yet. Even if it was an emergency, if the ministry finds out, the whole team could be in trouble. He orders everyone to keep their mouths shut and never mention what happened today. The archer smiles in relief. The other two laugh, promising to take the secret to their graves. And trust me, you and I are just as confused as Arthur is right now. All right, stick with me. You're about to see how a nobody becomes the kingdom's most wanted shield. The leader explains everyone would be dead without him, so he gets a full cut. With a shocked look, Arthur asks if that means every other knight in the party will receive less coin than they planned. Lady Alara steps up and admits he is right, but trust her, no one in this guild is going to complain. Smiling, she warns that if anyone does whine, Arthur should tell her so she can immediately stop healing them in the next battle. Arthur's communication stone glows, and he steps away. Curious, Alara asks if it is some noble girl calling to check on him. He just laughs it off and tells her it is probably just his younger siblings looking for him. But it is a lie. The association is reaching out, and he is baffled why the kingdom's top officials are trying to find him. We cut to the Grand Guild Hall. Inside, Arthur demands to know why his secret night trial was moved up. Sir Julian replies it is because the elite heroes sent to the southern marches are returning to the capital late tonight. Confused, Arthur asks what that has to do with him. Julian explains a Tier 3 beast attacked the southern borders last week. Knights from every kingdom were sent, but our realm actually performed better than the rival empire in that bloody mission. Naturally, that means all eyes are currently on the association, and they're promising new recruits. Arthur realizes they just want to process him and be done with it. He says he is ready, while Julian apologizes for the rush. Now pay attention, because this magical duel is where everything starts to spiral. The trial will be held in an illusion chamber. Suddenly, a beast manifests before Arthur. He recognizes this magic. It is exactly like the training rooms he remembers from his past life. Interrupting his thoughts, the mage warns he is facing a Tier 6 void hound, and the trial will last for exactly 1 hour. The longer he survives, the higher his score. Glancing back, Julian asks the council members if the magic is stable and ready. Watching from the balcony are a veteran knight, a sharp-eyed scholar, and a high-ranking lady with long hair. These three are the judges. The veteran nods, confirming that every spell is set for the duel to officially begin. Turning back to Arthur, Julian announces that the high-stakes trial has officially started. The beast lunges, but Arthur's mind is elsewhere. He is thinking about the elite heroes who are currently arriving at the guild hall. Slamming his shield down, he launches a counter-strike that sends the shadow beast tumbling back across the stone floor. Arthur realizes this is his chance to use his unique power and copy a skill from one of the arriving heroes. As the beast snarls, Arthur grins back. If he plays his cards right, he will definitely walk away with a legendary ability. But for right now, he has to focus on this mock battle. With his enhanced senses active, he knows he could end this fight in a few seconds. But the average time to beat this beast is 4 hours. If he finishes too fast, the High Council will start asking dangerous questions. It is better to use basic, textbook moves, stalling for time without looking too strong or too weak to attract any suspicion. 3 hours later. You and I can see what's happening here. Arthur's playing them all for fools. Julian notices he's just repeating basic moves, but the judges are stunned. The veteran knight beams, whispering that he is witnessing the birth of a legendary super rookie after a long time. The lady joins in, noting that the young boy's heart rate and aggression levels are perfectly stable. The scholar adds that the most incredible part is how Arthur dodges every single strike with just minimal movement. Suddenly, the lady excuses herself to find a restroom, promising the other 2 judges that she will be back shortly. Then the veteran claims he ate too much breakfast and slips out too, leaving the nervous official alone with the scholar. Taking off his spectacles, the man says that continuing the test doesn't really make much sense at this point. Sir Julian starts breaking into a cold sweat, asking the judge if he is really sure. Without another word, the judge grabs his stone and slips out. Outside, the lady is already frantically calling her guild about Arthur. The veteran is also on a call, raving about how incredible the young boy is. Then asks his contact if they realize that making textbook moves look this easy is actually the hardest thing. Meanwhile, the scholar is informing his own superiors that the protagonist is an extremely talented young warrior. As Arthur keeps fighting, the scholar warns that with 2 other guilds already interested, they must strike a deal before anyone else can move. The trial finally ends, and a clerk at the front desk hands a document to the tired boy. She smiles, telling him it is his official knight certificate and congratulating him on his performance. Arthur checks over the seal. So what do you and I think? Is he a genius or just lucky? Trust me, it only gets wilder. Stick with me. You and I are about to see how a commoner cons the realm's strongest knights as he leaves the local guild building. Arthur wonders why he was branded a Tier 3 knight again, since he didn't do anything special today. He decides to be happy because now he has his registration. This means he can finally support his younger siblings through honest and legal work. Suddenly, a loud commotion catches his attention. He looks over to see a massive crowd of commoners screaming for their heroes. A trio of legendary knights appears, and Arthur realizes they are the elite. There is Lady Jane, a master negotiator and powerful sorceress. Sir Kay, the kingdom's top-ranked champion, and Sir Leon, who is the world's greatest defender. Arthur notices Leon looks like he is in a terrible mood and wonders if he should actually dare to approach him. Smiling, he decides to go for it no matter what happens. Our boy steps in front of the legendary trio, catching them off guard. Feeling awkward, he says he is a fan and honored to meet them. Being friendly, Jane asks if he would like an autograph, but the boy declines, leaving the lady feeling quite embarrassed. He then reveals that he is actually a fan of Sir Leon. Now, this is the part where you and I would probably start running. The warrior snaps, demanding to know what Arthur is talking about right now. Leaning forward, the giant knight tells him to repeat that. Arthur is terrified. Staring at the massive warrior, he wonders if that is the stare of a villain. The man walks toward him, and Arthur wonders if he is about to be beaten into the ground. Looking even angrier, the knight asks again what he just said. With no other choice, our boy states he is just a fan. Sir Leon looks back at his companions and asks if they heard that correctly. Sir Kay laughs, while Lady Jane says they were so close to winning, leaving the protagonist feeling very confused. The woman calls him a meddling idiot, while the tanker gloats that they finally have proof he has at least one real fan. We go back 30 minutes earlier to a royal carriage, where the trio was having a very interesting conversation on their way over. Jane recalls a time someone claimed to be a fan, only for Leon to aggressively drive them away with his temper. Since then, she had never seen anyone claim to be his fan. Crossing her arms, she says she has never met a man like that and hates liars. The man insists he is not lying because, being a hero, he obviously has plenty of fans in this kingdom. The woman says if someone claims to be his fan when they arrive at the guild, she will grant him a wish. If not, he owes her. Curious, Leon asks what kind of help she needs. The sorceress explains that their next mission is to hunt a Tier 3 monster, which is going to be dangerous. The guild lacks defenders, so if he loses the bet, he will have to lead the front lines for free without receiving a single gold coin. Back in the present, the man smiles because he won the bet while the woman scowls in defeat. Let's pause. Did Arthur just become a pawn in a high-stakes bet? Leon asks if he is really a fan while Arthur wants to run away. Surprisingly, the knight extends his hand. He wants to sign something but has no quill, so he can only offer a firm handshake instead. Frozen, the boy wonders what is happening here, but decides to reach out and return the handshake with the legendary warrior. Secretly copying the man's ability, Leon then asks the young boy what his name is. Arthur introduces himself and receives a card to call if he ever needs help. Sir Kay joins the talk and asks if his name is really Arthur. Still confused, he says yes. The hero smiles and introduces himself while also extending his hand. With a handshake, Arthur copies the man's power. Kay says this is amazing because he did not expect to find a kingdom treasure in this place. The defender then asks what his friend is talking about. Hugging him, Kay says anyone who is a fan of Leon is a kingdom treasure. They both leave because they must speak with the guild master immediately. The woman stays behind and says this is truly annoying. Arthur approaches her, saying he is also her fan and wants a handshake. He claims it would be an honor for his entire life, but Lady Jane just turns her back and walks away, completely ignoring him. The boy thinks her personality is strange, since she offered an autograph just a few minutes ago. Unable to steal her final ability, he decides to leave since he already gained more than he ever expected today. At the same time in Valkyries at the American Guild, one man asks another what they are looking at on the scrying screen. They are watching Arthur's test. After 3 hours, he had only consumed 3% of his spirit essence. Curious, the bald man asks where the boy is from. The blonde man says he is from Eldoria. Is it fake? No. And trust me, you and I need to watch this kid because the world is already monitoring his every move. Lord Paul picks up the scroll, but Kevin stops him, saying it is too soon for the High Council. You and I are about to see if he knows how many sovereign tier knights exist. Only 5 started from the common tier, so every kingdom is watching. Kevin is silent, while his friend warns that losing this boy means losing a future sovereign tier legend for their kingdom. The data shows shocking results that require a much deeper investigation now. He tells his partner to watch the images closely. A manor stands tall under a clear, sunny sky. A man steps through the rift atop the tower and reaches for the heavy door. Heading down the stairs, he checks how his defense and armor skills have evolved. The system confirms his universal arts boost defense and slash damage massively. Now pay attention. We are heading into ancient ruins where a terrifying beast is waiting for its prey. Our brave knight braces himself to use his shield for a stun. He triggers the shieldstone art, stopping the beast's charge cold and shattering its legendary strength. At that moment, the monster feels the impact and weakens. Seeing the beast falter, he screams for young Master Julian to strike. Julian's unique traits do not buff power, but the system shows incredible jumps in his speed and evasion. That lightning flash strike, absolutely impressive power right there from the boy. Suddenly, our warrior leaps for an aerial hit while the monster swings back. With a blur, he teleports and lands a lethal critical blow straight to the monster's throat. His speed becomes faster than light itself as a satisfied smirk creeps onto the hero's face. Walking back down, he thinks about how insane this entire situation is. The skills he copied from Seraphina and Julian were better than his own. With these combined, beginner zones are nothing. He enters his room and finds it completely silent. But wait, he starts to feel like something is wrong. He reaches for the meal on the countertop, only to find the food is stone cold. His mind races, then the door swings open as the young girl wakes up. Confused, he looks back. She asks why he arrived so late tonight. He asks Alara if they ate yet. Still tired, She says they thought it was better to wait so everyone could eat together. Realizing what happened, he tells her she should have eaten without him. But she was not hungry. When he asks why, her eyes start to water. Trust me, this hits hard. She saw his death in a nightmare and was terrified because he would not answer his calls. She hugs him tight, crying about her fear. He holds Alara tight, trying to comfort her while she stays extremely worried. Suddenly, another child in blue nightclothes appears, terrified that his big brother had disappeared for so long. Despite the scare, they finally sit down to share some roast chicken. He had promised to spend time with them, but the work of a night ruined his plans. The three eat like a happy family, while the dark night settles over the manor. With the kids asleep, he starts checking something on his magical scroll in bed. He takes some images of his loot and realizes everything is finally ready. Now he just needs to list the goods and wait for a rich buyer. To him, selling Lady Catherine's grace and the Earthbreaker feels like a total waste. He tries to claim a new skill from the card, but the compatibility fails. He tries to copy it, but that fails too. He realized he had no other option. Suddenly, a massive warning about core generation flashes, and his head starts splitting in pain as a new function forms. He gained extra points and new powers. The noise in his skull grows louder as the core generation loading hits 1%. He has no clue what this is, since Master Gideon never mentioned it to him. Still, he is anxious to see what happens when the loading bar finally reaches 100%. You and I leave him here, reflecting on that same awakening sensation. Stick with me. Arthur Vance is about to turn these ruined buildings into his very own personal leveling ground. A carriage rattles through the shattered streets of the capital. Inside the carriage, Arthur searches the magical system. It is split in two, the primal and the echo. The primal core manages every magical link across this entire shattered dimension. This power is not just magic, it is an independent entity. Meanwhile, the echo core works only for him, copying abilities and even forging entirely new spells to recommend. It could replicate any life form, though Arthur still struggled to understand its full potential. Trust me, this new information changes everything as he climbs the tower. If he can mimic monsters, he is unstoppable. He finally reaches his destination. He stops for water, realizing this information is the key to his survival. With a heavy breath, he pulls up his status window. Arthur Vance, age 25, class Echo Master. His level 1 core shows a massive increase in raw power. The screen flickers with new attributes and hidden stats that were definitely not visible to him just moments before. A smile crosses his face. Arthur watches the Dusk Bracer activate its hidden option, boosting his attributes by 100 points across the board. The power spike is incredible. Now, he just needs to check the core limits. If he pushes it, he could unleash over 20,000 units of magical force. With the bracer equipped, his efficiency is going to be absolutely perfect. He is still only level 1, but his hope is that with every level increase, his stats will grow. Suddenly, a strange sound echoes from the dark depths of the building. Pay attention here. Arthur is about to draw this beast into his deadly trap. A massive, distorted creature stalks the ruins of the destroyed city. He checks the map. No civilians nearby. This is the perfect arena for him to test his new powers. The creature roars in pure anger. Arthur runs toward the lot. His foe has no eyes, but it seems to be an extremely powerful enemy. He stands perfectly still, waiting for the best chance to start the fight. His eyes glow blue as he cycles through his weapons. Will it be a spear, a sword, or a dagger? The creature screams as it loses its patience. It lunges. Arthur decides a longbow is the best way to handle this enemy. The bow forms in his hands. Now he understands Sir Gawain's strength, but there is no time to think. The monster is coming at him. He prepares his bow and assumed his position. The arrow hits the monster precisely. He rains down a barrage of rapid shots. He has now completely maximized his core. The creature staggers under the assault, letting out one final, desperate scream of agony. But Arthur is not done. He sprints toward it. Leaping into the air, he switches to a longsword, confident that he has inherited Gawain's full set of abilities. He grips the hilt tightly, ready to strike. To be a hero, he must be stronger. He strikes the horrendous creature. Shadowy shards explode into the air as the dark knight finally falls dead. He is satisfied with the fight. Looking at his phone, he sees that over an hour has already passed. It is getting late. Hunting the remaining demons in this area would take him at least another 30 minutes. Suddenly, his phone starts ringing. It is the Hunter Association. They are calling him. And trust me, you and I are going to want to see who is calling. On the other side, a woman introduces herself as Jane from the reception team. Without explaining why, she asks if the boy was awake yet. Stick with me. You and I are about to see a simple morning turn deadly. Hearing that the High Chancellor wants a private audience, Arthur suddenly notices a monster lurking in the darkness nearby. He stays focused on the call, trying to gather more information about this sudden royal meeting. Before setting a time, he asks when the Chancellor arrives. Jane says his schedule is fixed for 7 in the morning. It is currently 6:20 in the morning, but our hero plans to be at the meeting hall by 7 sharp. The monster is closing in fast. Without dragging out the call, Arthur is sure he can make it within 30 minutes. Hanging up his device, he turns his full attention toward this new deadly challenge. With heavy, thundering footsteps, the creature charges. Wielding his shield, he activates a stunning charge. The abomination's attack is instantly cut short. With glowing eyes, he surges forward using a lightning strike. Now watch this carefully. He moves faster than light to reach his enemy's blind spot. Touching its skin, the divine interface offers to copy a skill from a low-ranking soldier of the Iron Legion. He accepts instantly, letting the system handle the magic while he leaps back to safety. The skill mimicry is soon complete. With a commanding voice, the warrior orders the subspace to open. A Tier 3 crystal pulses with bright energy, indicating that something incredibly valuable has been detected. Holding the crystal, he prepares to absorb its power to force his core to the next level. Pure energy begins to surge and spread throughout the young knight's body. His only thought is evolving his core to save time. Fully transformed, Arthur wonders what kind of battle comes next. Meanwhile, the first rays of the morning sun begin to wash over the distant landscape. Shortly after, our protagonist steps through a magical portal, returning to the busy urban district. Checking his device, he realizes his growth will significantly speed up his second ascension. It is 6:55. A loud growl echoes from the young man's stomach as hunger starts to set in. You and I know that even a hero needs a meal after a morning hunt. Inside the lift, he checks his newly copied skill, feeling confused about why it labels him a low-ranking soldier. Then, the explanation appears. It turns out the Iron Legion's grunts will now recognize him as an ally and refuse to attack. Leaving the lift, he reflects on this passive defense while following the Chancellor's steward toward the meeting. The woman stops and opens a heavy wooden door, gesturing with a friendly smile for him to enter. A gray-haired man in a fine suit looks very pleased to see Arthur. The boy walks in with calm confidence. The High Chancellor invites him to take a seat and make himself at home. Smiling, he asks if they can speak informally, seeing no need for stiff protocol between them. Arthur agrees immediately, noting the man's casual tone, while the Chancellor praises his perfect punctuality. Lord Sterling looks confused when Arthur starts listing all the humble chores he used to do for his family. They share a silent look for a moment before the Chancellor suddenly bursts into a loud laugh. Despite the oddity, he realizes the boy's words are a serious reflection of his past. He gets straight to the point. Meanwhile, our hero waits attentively for whatever major news is coming. Without wasting words, he reveals that the kingdom's association wants to make him a serious proposal. They want him to reject recruitment from foreign noble houses and stay loyal. Arthur analyzes the situation silently. To the Chancellor's surprise, Arthur reveals he has never actually received any offers from foreign lands. Reports show that major guilds from across the sea are already showing massive interest in recruiting him. This information is a complete and total shock to the boy. Feeling embarrassed, the Chancellor admits their test data was leaked to those foreign powers. Thinking it is all a misunderstanding, Arthur asks if people actually know about his current rank. The man responds that everyone is aware. However, Arthur doesn't think Tier 3 is impressive for a beginner. And that's where we leave it, trust me. His rookie status makes him a target. Stick with me. You will see our hero realize he is just as ruthless as his enemies. Conrad does not know how to handle these facts. The man insists that by mastering his second awakening, he could hit Class A rank immediately. He realizes that with this second awakening secured, he would rival a third awakener and maybe reach Class S. Looking at the boy's talent, he was a massive asset. The Royal Hunter Association found him incredibly attractive as a potential weapon for the kingdom. They could not let such a talent slip away. While taking a notebook from his assistant, the president reveals he has prepared 3 specific conditions. First, he gets an initial support fund of 1 billion gold. Second, total tax exemption for his entire team. Finally, he would receive 2 pieces of class, a dragon-scale armor, entirely free of charge. Handing him a pen, the president says the contract lasts until his second awakening is fully complete. Now, Conrad has only one goal left: accept these life-changing conditions and sign on the dotted line. But our hero is suspicious, reminding them he is only Class C even after the offer. He is still not convinced. Now pay attention, all this support just to keep him in the capital. Something feels off, and he wants the real truth. Suddenly, the president stands up, realizing this boy is far more observant than he originally thought. The guild's real condition was that he cannot leave the kingdom of Eldoria during the entire contract period. Leaning over the table, he explains the young man cannot join any independent noble houses and must consult them for expeditions. Additionally, if the guild calls for a raid, he must prioritize it above all else under any circumstances. In short, no obstacle will be allowed between Conrad and the association. In the end, he would have no freedom of choice. Those were the final terms, but he would have very little time to weigh the massive proposal. The president warns the offer expires if he talks to other guilds. However, Conrad understands the stakes perfectly and signs the parchment. The man in the suit is confused and offers him more time to think it over. But the young knight is determined and knows his path. With total focus, the two shake hands, sealing the deal. Outside, the capital city is bustling with commoners. At a tavern, a young girl looks over the menu options. Suddenly, a young child gets excited upon realizing they are standing in a massive royal shopping district. Conrad brought his 2 younger siblings for a rare family outing. Excitedly, the boy asks to see some shirts. Alara is worried about her brother's noise, but our hero is just happy. Both are shocked they can buy whatever items they want. With a warm smile, Conrad tells his siblings they can choose the 10 items they love the most. Pure joy fills the children's faces as they celebrate the moment. You and I can see everything is changing fast, but he knows he must wait out the protection period while preparing for the trouble ahead. Suddenly, Alara shows her brother a beautiful sapphire blue dress. Arthur instantly loves the outfit and tells his sister she must have it. A clerk approaches and tells the children to stop touching the royal silk. Meanwhile, Conrad reflects on his task list, connecting it back to dark events from his past. At that moment, he tells the nervous clerk not to worry because he is buying every single piece. Either way, until he finishes that list, he has zero intention of ever leaving this kingdom. Suddenly, a warning blares for shoppers. An unstable rift has opened right inside the mall. The news spreads panic everywhere. They beg everyone to stay calm and follow the royal guard's instructions immediately. Amid the chaos, a woman screams that the elite hunters will be arriving shortly. Orders are for everyone to stay inside, But the terrified crowd just wants to escape the building now. Outside is even more dangerous, and the only hope is to follow the guards to a safe evacuation zone. Total chaos erupts as people start running for their lives. Conrad watches the disaster unfold, feeling the air grow cold. Being a hunter, he must investigate the danger, but he asks the clerk to protect his young siblings. Ilara is terrified for his safety, shouting that it is far too dangerous out there. According to the young man's memories, 5 Class D beasts are lurking nearby right now. On this day, the building collapsed because monsters chased the refugees deep into the heart of the mall. His hands tremble with pure rage. He tells Ilara to protect Arthur, and trust me, you and I definitely want to see this. Stick with me. You and I are about to watch a lone hero fight while the Titan Guard takes their sweet time. He had to survive this bloodbath completely alone, desperately holding the line until the cavalry finally arrived to help. Total chaos erupts in the streets as the abominations unleash hell, leaving the people in a state of pure despair. A frantic officer tries to herd the panicked crowd into the grand bazaar, but fear turns into a violent stampede as people fight. Meanwhile, 5 massive beasts tear through the city, ready to leave nothing but ruin in their wake as they spread out to hunt. The creatures catch his scent and turn. The terrified crowd keeps screaming and pushing, trampling each other in a desperate race for safety. Arthur Thorne stands firm in the middle of the storm, letting the fleeing masses surge past him like a desperate tide. His heart sinks as the reality hits. He is now the only soul left standing between the monsters and the innocent. The giants close in, and Arthur knows his defenses are thin. Gritting his teeth with tension, he decides to tap into his subspace vault. Now pay attention. A portal ripples open for him to pick his gear. But that monster's aura spreading through the air, it is pure madness. The young knight could not let a single one through. He had to shield his younger brother at any cost. He readies his enchanted shield, prepared to shatter his foes. With his speed skill active, he plans to dance around the giants like a silver blur. His first strike connects, slamming into the monster's leg with the force of a falling mountain. The creature howls in agony as the blow lands. Using his supernatural speed, Arthur darts around the battlefield, leaving the giants swinging at thin air. Suddenly, he stops his sprint to analyze the chaos and observe the situation before his next move. The abominations track his every move, turning their massive frames. Arthur barks a challenge, baiting his opponents into a direct confrontation. Offended by the boy's sheer audacity, all 5 giants roar in fury. They charge, ready to crush their tiny target into the dirt. On a nearby street, carriages pile up in a massive traffic jam. Lord Alistair grows increasingly angry, realizing his vehicle will not move. The main road is blocked by people trying to leave, and not even the city guards can manage the overwhelming situation. Stuck and fuming, Alistair curses his luck. Suddenly, a heavy hand lands on his shoulder, breaking his focus. Sir Cedric tries to calm his lord. They look down at a magical orb, broadcasting the battle live from the city center. In the middle of the war zone, Arthur is barely holding on, pushing his skills to the absolute limit. Recording the carnage, a young scribe tells his viewers he is stunned by the bravery of this mysterious, unknown fighter. You and I saw that coming, right? Lord Alistair recognizes the boy as a memory suddenly flashes back through his mind. Without wasting a second, he informs his men that he knows the young warrior fighting this war all by himself. Cedric is baffled, dying to know the hero's identity. With a sharp grin, Alistair claims the boy is actually a fan of his. His knight looks on, completely lost by Alistair's strange sense of humor and vague explanation. Alistair explains that he met a young admirer at the capital after his return from the Southern Isles, but the name escapes him. Meanwhile, the scribe risks his neck to keep the broadcast running. He knows if the knight falls, he is definitely next. Ignoring the danger, he keeps filming with professional grit, determined to show the world the raw horror of the urgent situation. Finally, the scribe begs his followers to be generous and make donations for his life-risking coverage. The comments are a storm of shock. One viewer even claims that not even Lord Alistair himself could survive a fight like that. Reading that, Alistair's pride takes a hit. He is annoyed that people are questioning his legendary combat abilities. Without a second thought, he immediately leaps from the vehicle and hits the ground. Cedric watches in confusion, but Alistair is driven. He is determined to prove his worth and see the boy's talent with his own eyes. With pure fire in his gaze, nothing will stop him. He charges ahead, leaving his confused colleague behind in the dust. Suddenly, the crowd clears as they see the master approaching. One soldier orders the man to step aside, though he is stunned. In an instant, Alistair's elite warriors rally to his side, weapons drawn and ready for the kill. His final command is for Sir Julian to uncover the identity of this new face. Alistair warns him that information might be hard to find. But the commander already knows the name, Arthur Thorne. Finally, the Lord asks if every man is prepared to dive into the fire. Their faces are set in stone, fueled by a fierce loyalty to protect their city under their master's command. Now, as one unit, they charge directly into the heart of the storm together. The order is given, and they sprint toward the fight. One beast swings a massive fist at Arthur, but he dodges the blow with skill. Even so, the impact sends him tumbling hard into the dirt. His face is soaked in sweat as Arthur prays for a miracle. And trust me, you and I are going to want to see what happens next. All right, you and I are about to see if this rookie can survive. He pushes his super senses to avoid every lethal strike. These enemies were terrifying nightmares, driven by a powerful and mindless rage. Julian tries to outrun them, but he knows that facing two high-level beasts at once is far from easy. He slows down and stops right near the monster's claws. With a deafening roar, the beast waits for the perfect chance to strike. At that exact second, the protagonist realizes his plan actually worked. He completely tricked the massive beast. But then, he notices something unusual. A strange situation unfolds that leaves him totally confused. The monster lunges to crush him, but Sir Dawson and his knights arrive just in time to help as much as possible. A massive shield blocks the impact as they charge forward, getting closer and closer to the beast. Now watch closely. Gathering all his strength, he manages to land a blow that leaves the creature completely disoriented. The beast is lost, not knowing where that strike came from. Julian is amazed to be fighting alongside his legendary hero. Dawson orders Sir Cedric and Sir Alistair to handle two beasts, while Sir Tristan checks if there are other survivors nearby. A healer is assigned to stay by Julian's side and keep him standing until the very end of the fight. While resting on the ground for a moment, the boy wonders why the guild master took so long to arrive. Noticing the boy won't stop talking, Dawson realizes he might actually have enough energy to handle a few more monsters. Once he's healed, Julian must defend the city. Meanwhile, Dawson's power flows through the boy's body. Instead of just playing bait, the best move was for Julian to go full tank and end this quickly. Handing over his heavy shield, Dawson makes sure the boy understands the next part of the plan. Every second wasted means more destruction. In the distance, they see yet another monster closing in. Now the two warriors stand side by side. The beast charges, gaining terrifying speed as it nears them. In the shelters, people hide from the danger. News reports announce that the Black Shield Guild has arrived, but they haven't defeated a single beast yet. Elias listens to the broadcast, his face pale with worry for his older brother. Elena notices the little girl shaking and softly tells her that everything will be under control soon. You and I can feel the fear as new reports on his safety surface. Suddenly, cheers erupt through the shelter. The knights have finally taken down the first calamity beast. The children are beaming with joy, realizing that the tide of the battle is finally turning. Driven by curiosity, little Arthur tries to peek outside, but Elena stops him from entering the danger. Before she can grab him, he bolts. Moments later, the group eliminates another massive creature. Only 3 beasts remain. The men hug and celebrate the victory while noticing messages from countless people around the entire world. They discuss the Black Shield's efficiency and begin questioning the identity of this mysterious rookie. For nearly an hour, he held off 5 monsters alone. Elias approaches the crowd and proudly informs them that the hero is his brother. The boy is bursting with pride, seeing Julian's incredible abilities being recognized by the world. Outside, night has fallen, and the dark streets are lit only by the flickering glow of lanterns. The war isn't over yet as Julian runs across the battlefield with his shield. With a sudden jump, he tries to divert the beast's attention. His weapon shifts into a razor-sharp blade, cutting through the abomination and ending its life. After 7 long hours of brutal combat, it's finally over. Julian realizes he is completely exhausted and his body is screaming for rest. He feels like he might collapse at any moment. Dawson walks over and thanks the boy for the great work. Choosing his words carefully, the commander settles his gaze on the boy and asks a very unusual question. He wants to know if Julian is truly the rank C beginner who was recently classified. The boy pulls himself together, realizing this conversation is serious. Finally, the man asks straight out if the boy's powers are somehow irregular. Julian is caught off guard by the question, but suddenly, a familiar voice calls out his name. People stream out of the shelters, and he spots his siblings and Alina running toward him. The kids throw themselves into their brother's arms, sharing a warm hug after a night of desperation. Julian looks down at them, proud that his little siblings stayed brave through the whole ordeal. At that moment, Dawson receives a secret file on the boy, but finds nothing suspicious in the research. So, what do you and I take from this? Even a hero needs a good meal after saving the world. Annabelle was beaming with joy, but young Julian wanted something else. Trust me, you are going to love how Arthur lets them pick. Suddenly, a servant who had been watching the whole scene stepped forward to intervene. She thanks him for his grueling work in protecting her and the entire staff. Arthur insists he should be the one thanking her for raising his siblings. Then, in a shock move, she pulls him into a hug. Tears fall as her gratitude overflows, leaving the legendary knight Arthur red-faced and completely flustered. Before long, every villager noticed the famous radiant knight was among them. The crowds whispered about how dashing he was. People began swarming to touch the hero who had saved the kingdom from ruin. Still, Arthur could not fathom how everyone knew his secret identity. The morning sun promises a peaceful day ahead. Inside the hall, magic mirrors displayed the spring news from Solaris, including the sighting of 5 dragon-class monsters. The herald lists the units that held the line, specifically naming Arthur as the savior. Finally, they announced that the high judges gave him the highest rank by a unanimous vote. Suddenly, the Grand Master of the Order appears to pester our new celebrity. Now here is where it gets interesting. Arthur hates these jokes and tells him to stop. The man asks curiously if he is busy dealing with the fame from the siege. Since early dawn, lords had been sending messengers to recruit him, but the Order blocked them all. Arthur could contact the Grand Master if the post-battle stress became too much. Switching gears, the man warns that the High Council and authorities were calling Arthur an irregular knight. Apparently, his power broke every conventional law of chivalry. They saw him as a mutant, yet still capped below S rank. Arthur asks if he must register his name. His best bet would be registering in the Western Empire for full imperial protection. Many commoners applied for the status, but only 3 had ever been officially knighted. Besides, the process was brutal. With 2 siblings to protect, leaving the kingdom was no simple choice. Now they could talk about the new contract, which would provide massive wealth for Arthur and his kin. His first deal was written for a squire, so the Order proposed new terms fit for an irregular powerhouse. Baffled, Arthur told them to wait until his status was fully confirmed. But that was pointless. First, his stipend would jump to 5 billion gold with the same tax exemptions. He would get 5 mythic artifacts to rent, plus a top-tier armored carriage for his travels. The duty remained the same with no extra catch. Arthur felt wary of this whole suspicious offer. The Grand Master tried to figure out why the young knight looked so distrustful. Then Arthur asked about the carriage. He wanted to know if it could be ready by sundown. On the King's Road, a white carriage begins accelerating. Trust me, you will never guess that Gareth is the one behind the reins. Steering his new ride, Arthur calls his mentor. The man said Arthur could seek him out if he ever needed aid. If his goal was a meeting, he could simply tear open a hole in subspace. The two set a meeting for that very second. A portal rips open, and Arthur reaches into the raw energy. Sir Gareth would take 10 minutes to arrive. In his grip, Arthur holds a magic scroll, checking the setup. He had already refused to sell the legendary blessings and mounts because they were far too precious. Rather than taking gold, he tried to learn the skills himself. But it failed due to class incompatibility. Now that Arthur was famous, all eyes were on him instead of Gareth. So he prepared a small gift for the man who had actually saved his life before. It was a legendary Dragon Rider skill scroll. Gareth is floored at the mention of it, since only 9 such scrolls exist in the world. Still, the user would need extreme focus to use it without shattering the magic. Arthur is happy to offer his friend this treasure for a fair price, but he had a tiny favor in mind for later. Intrigued, Gareth asks what a hero could possibly need. Once the skill is learned, Arthur just wants a simple handshake. A moment later, they are in a grand, ornate office. Arthur reveals the priceless scroll. You and I can see Gareth can hardly believe this treasure is real. All right, you and I are about to see a deal worth 4 billion gold crowns. Absolutely insane. Alistair couldn't grasp why this boy was practically giving the card away. To him, Julian's logic didn't make a lick of sense. But Julian had already made up his mind. Besides, he knew he would master that legendary skill one way or another. Selling to some nameless stranger felt wrong compared to gifting it to a man he actually respected. As a top-tier knight, he could wield it perfectly. Both men stood there, weighing the massive, life-changing proposal. Suddenly, they began tallying their wealth, quickly hitting a staggering 20 billion gold. Alistair asked if the boy wanted pure gold or rare artifacts. Julian paused, thinking he might need some high-tier enchanted gear. Soon, the three of them were standing before a massive, gleaming glass manor. The price for the entire estate was 42 billion gold crowns. They wanted to know if Julian was interested in the trade. Julian considered the idea of becoming a lord. Right then, the guild master leaned in to start a conversation. With a sly grin, he asked Julian if he liked the place. Suspicious of the motive, the boy stayed quiet. Fed up with the games, Julian finally accepted the manor in exchange for the priceless skill card. The master looked ecstatic with his new prize. Suddenly, a wave of raw power exploded from him, shaking the whole room. Julian watched the display carefully, seeing the joy in the old man's eyes. The system confirmed it. The knight had successfully bonded with the new skill. Now, alongside Sir Cedric from the Eastern Empire, Alistair was the only heavy knight to learn the mountain splitter technique. Now pay attention here. His ranking is about to skyrocket as they seal the biggest deal in history. Lord Alistair asked what the boy planned to do from now on with his massive new estate. Julian was dreaming of building an elite mercenary company. For now, his main goal was simple: hunt safely in the beginner forest zones. Money didn't change the fact that this world was lethal. He still had a younger brother and sister to protect. Their parents perished during the Great Blight, leaving them in absolute ruin. Their childhood was a hellish, recurring nightmare Julian never wanted to relive. His only wish was for his siblings to never know that kind of darkness. He wanted to give them a life of hope, freedom, and plenty of gold. Alistair was moved by the story, but another knight interrupted. He warned that a peaceful life like that was officially impossible. The Great Blight was just the start. The world was slowly crumbling toward total annihilation. Monster raids were surging, and the kingdom's defenses were running dangerously low. Worse than monsters were the assassins and thieves in the Dark City. Lately, A string of cold-blooded murders had been targeting noble knights in Highstone. The prime suspect was a notorious villain from the Blackwood Duchy. 𝒌𝒊𝒐𝒏𝒆, this is the part where it gets dark, guys, a man who hunts humans instead of monsters. Lord Alistair realized Julian's siblings didn't actually need a fancy estate. What they really needed was a world entirely free of monsters and cursed warriors. Meanwhile, a heavy silence hung over a ruined outpost. A bleeding soldier waited for the Knights Guild to return. Out of the shadows, a hooded figure emerged. The soldier instantly recognized the cold eyes of 𝒌𝒊𝒐𝒏𝒆 the Shadow. The killer smirked, admitting he loved hunting beyond the Blackwood borders. In that moment, the soldier knew he was staring at his own death. 𝒌𝒊𝒐𝒏𝒆 mocked him, sneering that his comrades had left him to rot in the mud. The soldier ignored the taunts, charging the villain with his sword raised high. But the villain was a blur, easily dodging the desperate strike. 𝒌𝒊𝒐𝒏𝒆 buried a dagger deep into the man's gut. The soldier collapsed, gasping as white-hot pain flooded his body. 𝒌𝒊𝒐𝒏𝒆 knew reinforcements were coming. He didn't have much time left to finish his business. He asked if the soldier knew a boy named Julian. The man just spat blood and told him to rot. Realizing the soldier was useless, 𝒌𝒊𝒐𝒏𝒆 delivered a final, crushing blow to his throat. The assassin smiled, savoring the kill. With his work done, he turned to melt back into darkness. Before leaving, he checked a message on his crystal. A video of a boy fighting 5 monsters began to play. His face was splattered with blood as he stared intently at the screen. And trust me, that chilling laugh means Julian is officially on the radar of a total psychopath. 1 week later, at the beginner hunting grounds of Northbury. Stick with me, you and I are about to see a terrifying beast ready to claim its victims. Julian stops the attack cold. From a distance, the townspeople watch the clash. Julian holds his ground firmly as the giant creature approaches. Sarah defends herself with her bow. Suddenly, the young fighters find themselves right in the middle of the arena. Tapping his ally on the shoulder, he whispered that it was time for the final strike. Hearing the command, Julian is determined to end this. He breaks into a sprint, picking up speed with every step. Using his unique skill, Mighty Blow, level 1, he charges his sword with power to unleash a devastating attack. Now watch this, energy surges everywhere. Suddenly, the enemy is completely engulfed in a storm of intense flames. Gradually, it completely turns to ash. At that moment, Julian is told there was only one beast left to finish. He lands a killing strike and immediately sprints toward the next monster. Even with a mangled arm, the creature seems ready to strike. At that instant, the man calls for Sarah to pay attention. The archer realizes the situation immediately and decides to intervene. With her bow, she aims at the beast's skull and fires. The arrow flies with incredible speed, piercing straight through the thick skull of the aberration. In that battle mode, it took 2 hours and 20 minutes to complete. While fighting alone, Julian was much faster. However, there was nothing he could do due to the noise about irregulars. Soon, the armored Sir Alistair came to congratulate Julian. Thanks to him, the hunt was easier than expected. The young man was grateful for the chance to join the battle. His companion was impressed by the progress of the boy, who had already become a legendary mercenary and an irregular. However, his plans were more ambitious. He aimed to organize a proper knightly order. He wanted to learn everything from this veteran warrior. A knightly order and a mercenary team were very different things. But Julian made the man reflect by saying they were quite similar in terms of structure. In that case, Alistair completely changed his mind. He offered Julian the opportunity to lead the team next time. Confused, our protagonist didn't seem to understand the meaning of that offer. You and I might be surprised, but Alistair is actually planning to leave the beginner zone for good. The man knew he couldn't stay in that zone forever, and the perfect person to take the position was young Julian. The girl states that everyone owed their lives to Julian, so he was actually much more than qualified for the position. The young man standing beside her agreed. He was deeply grateful for the help during the battle. Alistair saw that his members were already on board. When he asked the others, everyone seemed thrilled to have Julian in charge. Julian was now officially the leader of the team. Even if he was confused, the people around him trusted his potential. His only mission now, make choices that protect the whole group. Before leaving, the former leader warns about a villainous assassin who was murdering knights across the kingdom. The Knight Association had been trying to form a team for some time, but they decided to keep emergency contacts ready for when they were needed. A teammate was excited to head out for drinks, but Julian had to answer an important message on his communication crystal. A voice mentioned his younger brother, Leo. The report seemed long and endless, but Julian was understanding every single word. After ending the message, his friend asks about his serious tone. Julian informs them the drinks would have to wait. Not understanding the real situation, the man in the plate mail seems very confused. Meanwhile, the academy seems quiet with no students around. Inside the classroom, Julian talks with a concerned teacher. She explained that lately, Leo couldn't focus in class and was getting into fights with his fellow students. The situation was getting worse. Julian hated knowing that his brother was getting into fights at the academy. She explains that simple arguments were now turning into real physical fights. The boy explained that the reason he was fighting was because he wanted to be strong, exactly like his father. Julian is shocked to hear they expect him to awaken as a guardian and become strong like his father. The hunter realizes that scolding and giving warnings wasn't the best way to educate the boy. Seeing his reaction, the teacher tries to wrap up the conversation on a positive note. So what do you and I think? Will Julian accept her plea to teach for a day? On that occasion, the presence of the knight Alaric Thorn was a good way to explain the profession and tell stories. Currently, the children were interested in the knightly profession, and he should talk about the dangers and difficulties. You and I are about to find out if this world is truly too dangerous for Elian. Meanwhile, Elian waited alone. Shortly after, his brother leaves the classroom. Looking to the side, he starts staring at the boy with curiosity. Before he could say anything, the boy was already apologizing for his actions. He explains that he fought because his classmates didn't believe his brother was the famous vanguard from the magic broadcasts. He was called a liar because they believed an orphan couldn't have such a brother. Noticing the boy's distress, Alaric reached out. The child's feelings were very real, and his older brother was not angry with him at all. With a smile, he asks him to bring his friends later to eat something delicious. At that moment, Elian's eyes fill with tears. The child quickly runs into his older brother's arms. Alaric is confused by his reaction, not understanding anything. Looking at the city, he thinks there was no way to stop his younger brother from becoming a knight. If he was destined for that, in the end, he would become one, just like Alaric himself became an outlaw. The desire for a hopeful life seems very distant at that moment. He quickly remembers the words of his friend. Now pay attention here. Let's see how the great calamity was only the beginning of a world destined for destruction. Besides the more frequent appearances of monsters and the decreasing resources, these rogue outlaws were a massive threat to his family. In the end, the world shouldn't have monsters or even awakened ones like him. Shortly after, he activates the teleportation magic circle. As he crosses, he is certain that a world without monsters is truly impossible. The other side of the portal forms near a white enchanted carriage. Crossing the circle, he reflects on how it would be possible to protect his brothers from all the evil in the world. His greatest fear was dying while fighting against monsters. He gets into the carriage, turns on the lights, and is ready. Besides that, he didn't want to end up in a dungeon like before. Starting the carriage, he accelerates down the highway. You and I both know the truth. His brothers eventually have to learn to survive in this cruel world. The protagonist was calling highs because he needed a favor. He wanted to know if there were knights patrolling the Southbridge area. Before he gets a response, he reminds them that the beginner zones must be monitored. Shortly after, Highs reports that the order has been fulfilled. The team led by the vanguard 𝒔 is hunting at the intersection. At that moment, the hero was already inside the area, observing all the city's destruction. Getting out of the carriage, he doesn't give further details about the reason for needing that information. He only explains that his team was planning to head to the Southbridge area soon. In the end, he knows it looks like they are trying to steal territory. Thanking them for the help, he says he will stay in touch. Once he is settled in the location, he starts mapping the area in awakened search mode. If he couldn't give his brothers a normal world, he would make sure to eliminate all the cockroaches destroying the world. When he had to do something, he used all his determination to complete the challenges. Suddenly, he notices the perfect target on one of the buildings, Shinsu. The man uses his weapon to aim perfectly. With one touch, he releases the arrow in the desired direction. The projectile gains strength as it travels through the air. Shortly after, the arrow pierces the heart of the warrior. Noticing the attack from behind, blood gushes from the man's mouth. Suddenly, a voice sounds very confused, trying to understand what just happened on the battlefield. With an earpiece, he can hear all the conversations. Shinsu seems to enjoy every second of that horrendous situation. For him, the death of a vanguard was not reason enough for everyone else to flee in terror. While preparing, he hears a threatening voice. He quickly turns and tries to hit his enemy, but he sees no one. At that moment, he tries to ask who is there. Alaric appears, calling for the assassin, who becomes confused upon realizing that the man knew who he was. He grabs his enemy's weapon, leaving him completely speechless. Stepping out of the shadows, the protagonist slowly reveals his face. Even though Shinsu did not know him yet, sooner or later, he would find out exactly who he was. Confused, Shinsu asks if that bastard was messing with him. Without wasting time, he breaks the arrow and demonstrates his power. Alaric exposes the betrayal and the sold secrets. Trust me, you and I are about to see some real justice. Trust me, you're going to love watching our hero force this assassin's hand way too early. In that moment, the rogue knight realizes his mistake. No matter what Silas said, nothing could change his fate. Silas trembles, realizing he's finally being confronted. But he wasn't going to back down. As he charges, Julian just stands there, calmly watching every move. The enemy closes in for the kill. Lord Julian just waits, almost eager for the first strike. Using his bare hands, the assassin tries to land a lethal, lightning-fast blow. Then he shifts into a predatory kick. Since nothing's landing, he tries to close the gap with a leap. Silas is spiraling now. He can't land a single hit, and Julian's smirk is only making it worse. Shocked, the man turns back, unable to believe the sheer audacity of this young noble. But before he can blink, a furious punch shatters his jaw. He clutches his face, humiliated and in agony. With a cold smile, Julian makes it clear that from this day forward. Now pay attention. Julian tells him he won't need another meal before Silas reaches into his pocket, unleashing a device that floods the area with smoke. Blinded by the thick cloud, Julian can't see anything moving in front of him. Thinking the boy is defenseless, the assassin draws a hidden, jagged blade for the kill. Julian stays calm, focusing his mind as he tries to sense movement through the haze. The man creeps up from behind, but Julian activates his heightened senses. He's one step ahead. Silas lunges forward, convinced that this strike will finally end the duel. He aims straight for Julian's throat, but the hero catches his arm with terrifying speed. Completely lost and confused, the assassin freezes. With one smooth motion, the warrior slams him down. He hits the dirt, taking another brutal blow to the face. Honestly, it's just like Julian thought, all villains are the same. Always trying for the coward's kill from behind. Even after the hit, Julian's eyes still feel a bit strange. He rubs his eyes, trying to clear the vision-blurring toxin the assassin used on him. You and I both know what's coming next. The coward begins desperately begging for his life, offering every single stolen relic he's ever taken. But Julian already knows exactly where those treasures are hidden. No deal. Pinned and broken, The boy is completely overwhelmed and finds himself impressed by the sheer power Julian is radiating. Silas had murdered many noble knights while living as a rogue, selling their heirlooms for gold. But Julian was finished with him, fully determined to end his life right here. The killer begs for mercy, but Julian doesn't feel a single shred of pity. In a broken world, words mean nothing. Later, the assassin's body is dropped right at the city watch gates. The morning heralds report that the main suspect in the Greystone murders was captured last night. Watching the chaos unfold, the young lord pays close attention to every bit of news. On his device, he watches the arrest. Before the regression, their powers were actually on the same level. That 100-point difference in strength is clear now. Julian could tear this guy apart like a piece of paper. While checking the reports, he sees how relieved the commoners are that the killer is gone. A local knight mentions how terrifying it was to serve in the Greystone area with that monster around. Now he can focus on his own path. Soon after, the Duke of the Association enters the room. Seeing Julian there, the Duke apologizes for the delay, though Julian doesn't mind at all. The young noble called this meeting, making the Duke worry that there might be some trouble. Julian just shrugs it off. He's only here to discuss some very specific changes to their contract. The gray-haired Duke turns pale when he hears that Julian wants to terminate their agreement entirely. According to Julian, a certain promise made to the Duke would have to be broken. Outside, the afternoon sun bathes the kingdom. On the main road, a carriage speeds along. Lord Julian is at the reins, a slight smile playing on his lips. At a nearby manor, a young man is startled awake by the ringing of the bell. He opens the door and bows low in deep respect. Julian just laughs, joking that the boy looks more like a street gangster. So what do you and I take from this? Julian came to speak with the grandmother, while the boy shouts for her inside. All right, you and I are about to see Alaric drop some news that catches his grandmother completely off guard. He keeps nudging the old lady to hurry up, acting like it is a life or death emergency. In the quiet kitchen, a glowing and high-tier soul ignition shard sits right there on the table. The advisor reveals this is a legendary soul ignition shard, a rare artifact worth over 1 billion gold crowns. Matriarch Alara is stunned, wondering how on earth a young man like him got his hands on it. Alaric's plan was simple, give the stone to Casper, but both of them look totally lost and confused. He explains he needs someone he can trust for the dangerous work, and Casper is the perfect fit. But Grandma isn't buying it. She thinks the boy is way too clumsy for such a massive responsibility. Sure, Casper has been a magnet for trouble since childhood, but he would never dream of betraying anyone. He even survived as a porter in the deadliest dungeons, earning a reputation as a respectable man. Still, the old lady refuses to give her blessing, despite Alaric's promise to keep her grandson safe. Now pay attention here. Alaric's persistence finally pays off and she agrees. Casper is absolutely thrilled. Her final condition is simple. The boy must never use his new powers without a damn good reason. Alaric explains that he's been working as a freelance sellsword, operating completely outside the official Citadel rules. Confused, Casper asks if the Citadel really doesn't care about someone breaking the law like that. Deep down, Alaric knew the Citadel wouldn't want to touch that kind of dirty work. Suddenly, his memories drift back to the day he discussed his bold plans with Commander Cedric. To work as a proper mercenary, one has to open an official office and register as a business. It was mostly about taxes, but being a sellsword was a completely different story. Alaric wondered if the commander would actually grant him permission to register his own order. At that moment, Cedric realized the young man was trying to find a way around his original contract. If he registered a guild, but failed to manage it properly. If he didn't manage the order well, rumors of tax evasion and scandal would follow. Cedric was still baffled as to why Alaric wanted to start his own company from scratch. Because the Citadel already backed him, Cedric warned he couldn't help him set up a rival faction. Now totally confused, Alaric had no idea what his next move should even be. Plus, the commander didn't get why Alaric wanted more work when he was already drowning in gold. You and I both know the feeling. When you're this strong, you just want to keep growing. Alaric realized that hunting monsters was the only way to truly save the world. As a knight, his goal was to slay every beast possible before his time was finally up. Hearing that selfless resolve, the commander finally began to understand what the young man was actually after. Cedric calls for Alaric's attention immediately, asking if he really came to the Citadel just to talk about some insignificant pests. The commander suggests they just register the new order right now, while he's already in the building. By registering officially, it creates a formal way to ask for help later, making the whole process much more structured. Having an official commission would stop any nasty rumors or misunderstandings between them from ever starting. With a sly smile and a quick wink, he waits for Alaric's answer. The young man likes his options. Back in the present, he tells the group that everything with the Citadel has already been handled. Instantly, Casper is completely shocked by that. But Grandma quickly smacks him for doubting Alaric. She believes every single word the young man says, knowing for a fact that he would never tell her a lie. After laying out his grand plans, he mentions that they'll be moving out in a few days. Without a second thought, she agrees, saying it's high time they move to a better home. Suddenly, he asks if the elderly woman would like to come with them. Since his parents died, she was the only one they ever truly trusted with their lives. It would be way too lonely without her. That's why he wants the matriarch to move in. But she isn't interested, pointing out that she already has a perfectly good house right here. She tells him to relax and go live his best life with his brothers. Alaric understands her choice. A moment later, he stands up from his chair, ready to show her some true respect. And trust me, you and I won't forget this. He bows deeply, thanking her for loving him like her own son. The matriarch beams with pride. 1 week later, the group is finally prepared for their new journey. All right, you and I are about to see two young heroes start the adventure of a lifetime. Charles feels like they are dripping with style, while Arthur tells him to keep his cool. The crest on the door marks the Blackwood Mercenary Company. The office is grand and modern, featuring a spacious area with carpeted floors and bright lighting. They share a simple meal of hot stew together. Charles looks absolutely stunned by the quality of the food before him. Arthur says to eat up since a busy afternoon awaits them both. The boy quickly folds his hands and offers a sincere prayer to the High Father. Suddenly, he makes a small correction, thanking the Mana Stone instead. Beside him, Arthur is totally confused by this bizarre behavior. Charles starts thanking him for a stone worth a fortune. However, the warrior informs him that the item wasn't even his to give. Shocked by this, the boy demands the truth. Arthur explains he took it from a debtor at work. It was a long story, so they focused on finishing the stew before it turned cold. Suddenly, a noble girl enters and notices they are right in the middle of lunch. Beside her, a red-haired woman offers her congratulations on starting the new mercenary company. Arthur immediately recognizes Lady Catherine from the famous Starlight Guild. This was their first meeting since the mana testing at the Royal Association. Charles is floored by her beauty. Accepting the compliment, the lady becomes completely embarrassed. Now pay attention here, because Master Leo suddenly bursts into the meeting and changes everything. Arthur is even more shocked to see the powerful man standing there. Smiling, the master jokes about the new office. Arthur is so stunned he can't even finish his meal. Showing her screen, Lady Catherine reveals she received countless messages from a man named Charles. In the conversation, he introduced himself and begged for support for the mercenary group. The boy gets nervous, claiming he was just trying to help promote the organization. Arthur grows increasingly irritated while Charles rambles on. Master Leo agrees with the promotion, but Arthur wanted to keep the group small. With a grin, the master asks if they were really just going to sit and eat stew all day. Flustered, Arthur says he would have prepared a feast if he knew more people were coming. Then he realizes the man has already arranged for a full professional catering service. The master calls it a small gift, and Arthur thanks him for such incredible generosity. Another girl named Haley appears to offer her best wishes. She can't believe Arthur owns this building. Owning an estate like this at his age was something incredible that sparked massive envy. However, Arthur's face starts turning red from so much sudden embarrassment. I know what you're thinking. Getting royalty treatment just for owning a building. Pretty sweet, right? Haley is curious about what happens with their joint hunts now that the company is official. He already had the perfect plan to divide the tasks without harming either side. But Catherine suddenly interrupts the conversation and pushes the girl aside. Suddenly, she asks for a private moment alone with the hunter. Since her time is limited, she ends up being quite blunt. Arthur dislikes the attitude but accepts. Shortly after, she walks out of the room looking visibly irritated. Catherine reveals she isn't just there to offer congratulations. Seeing that the Starlight Guild has a high-rank mission, Arthur is actually quite impressed. He knew the tankers in her guild were more than capable of handling that task. Catherine mentions the fee is set at 1 million gold, plus a percentage. Charles jumps into the conversation, shouting that 1 billion gold is an absolute fortune for their very first job. Most people wouldn't dare reject the guild, since it was considered bad luck. Meanwhile, the girl waits for an answer, saying she could pay the gold immediately. Despite his suspicions, Arthur decides to accept. Hearing his words, Catherine becomes extremely excited. However, the hero has 2 conditions for the quest. He suggests trading for a skill card. Paying attention, she hears the name Blessing of Seelan, a rare support-type skill card. And trust me, you and I just saw his entire destiny change. All right, you and I are diving into a world where a single item is worth 13 billion gold pieces. Alara was ready to show the card if she was interested, but Lady Catherine was far more interested in knowing the final condition this young man was about to impose. Rising from his seat, he makes a simple request. Once she masters the new skill, the only thing she has to do is give him a handshake. Lady Catherine falls into a deep silence, weighing her options. Moments later, the two seal their agreement with a firm handshake. Both stood to gain a fortune from this massive deal. A day later, the capital's high district looks like a literal wasteland of ruins and destruction. Suddenly, a wave of raw energy ripples through the entire area. Within the portal, a legion of warriors emerges, ready for a bloody hunt. Captain Alaric was confused. Why travel to the beginner zone like this? Normally, people would just use a carriage for that kind of journey. Most orders only have one teleporter, but she moved them to an advanced area. Now, they needed to focus on clearing the beasts. Opening the ancient map, Julian reveals that the closest threats were gathered in 3 specific locations. The problem? 2 spots were crowded together while the rest were scattered. Julian suggests targeting the location with just one lone beast. However, the Iron Vanguard had already claimed those 2 spots, and the surrounding territories belonged to other noble orders. When the Night Lord Desmond heard Julian was approaching, he decided to move even faster. Julian realizes just how much of a threat he is to the other noble guilds. Nervous, the boy explains that the man wants them to take full responsibility for this specific location. But Lady Catherine wasn't about to back down. She declares she's going to confront the master himself. Now watch this part closely. Our hero doesn't seem to care about the impossible situation they're facing. To the lady's absolute shock, he actually wanted to fight 2 monsters at once. Determined, he compares this fight to his last battle and starts calculating his chances against taking down 2 creatures. In the end, he couldn't believe this was considered such a massive problem that couldn't be easily fixed. Meanwhile, a massive beast was shredding everything in the capital with its razor-sharp claws. In the middle of the carnage, the Guardian waits for the enemy's furious strike with his shield. The girls weren't worried at all. Their leader knew the young man was more than capable of handling the pressure. After all, facing 5 monsters at once made him a total irregular. Right then, she realizes her colleague was being far too worried about the boy's safety. Contrary to all her suspicions, she truly believes Julian is a genuinely good person at heart. Usually, famous defenders are self-centered and incredibly arrogant, thinking only of their own glory. But Julian was different. He was humble, greeting every member of the order with respect. Lady Catherine still isn't convinced. Suddenly, a signal comes through for everyone to get ready for battle. Once the command was given, the raid would begin. Julian was already using every skill to weaken the beast. He was darting everywhere, but these two were insanely strong. A lethal strike nearly hits him, but he dodges just in time. In that moment, he realizes he can't use his 𝒂𝒊𝒐𝒏𝒕 skills or the powers he received from Sir Percival. There was no time to overthink the problem. He had to keep moving to stay ahead of the creature. He expected a tough fight, but two monsters was pushing it. Raising his shield, he prepares for the real clash. You and I both saw this coming. He finally releases his power, lighting up the ruins with pure energy. Other order members emerge from their hiding spots, watching the scene from a distance in absolute shock. With sweat dripping down his face, Julian thinks about how bad things would be if he hadn't taken the ring of 𝑨𝒊𝒏𝒕. Master Cedric would be so disappointed if he knew Julian's main goal was actually the item held between his fingers. The ring provides massive bonuses to health regeneration, defense, and several other vital attributes. Gaining 10,000 health points was insane, not to mention regenerating 1,000 per second like an immortal. The city was a wasteland of rusted carriages. The members gathered the loot and kept a close eye on the area. Shortly after, Lady Catherine reports that the gold deposit has been successfully completed. Julian checks his device to confirm the gold deposit and asks if the mission is finally over. With a smile, the girl thanks him for his incredible help. Our hero was leaving a lot richer after finishing his first job with the Dawn Order. Soon, requests for help and new contracts started pouring in from orders of all sizes. The lack of guardians was causing major problems for everyone. Most D-rank defenders in the region were already under contract with the most powerful noble houses. Suddenly, the young man takes a heavy blow to the face, sending him flying backward. And that's where we leave it. Julian spent a month hunting relentlessly, and trust me, he's just getting started. Left with no choice, Alistair had to press on alone. But right then it hit him. He was at his absolute breaking point. This long, lonely road, it was finally catching up to him. Suddenly, a massive surge of energy begins consuming his entire body. Stick with me because we just hit the second awakening, and it is a total game changer. His very soul begins to transform as he inherits a random skill from the previous master, Sir Cedric. Around him, the capital is a graveyard of shattered stone and crumbling ruins. The system displays massive upgrades, lower cooldowns, and peak efficiency. With this second awakening, Alistair's vitality and raw strength have reached heights he never thought possible. This is the power-up we were waiting for. While chewing on a ration bar, he starts planning how to spend his hard-earned skill points. He scrolls through the system, already looking for what it takes to reach the third awakening. Something feels different. He suspects more than just his stats have changed, so he studies the new data carefully. A new feature appears, Skill Combination Level 1. It allows him to merge two basic skills into something legendary. Now pay attention, because this is where the real fun begins. He immediately decides to merge two completely different abilities. His eyes light up. He can actually combine Lightning Flash with the devastating Mountain Split. Finishing his snack, he realizes the possibilities are endless. He could create an infinite number of custom skills. No need to overthink it yet. For now, he just needs to observe how his body has changed. The next perk is insane, copying skills without even touching people. He remembers having to shake Lady Catherine's hand just to mirror her power. No more awkward handshakes or bothering people for physical contact. It is all remote now. If the second awakening made him this much of a beast, he can only imagine the godlike power of the third tier. Time for the main event. His most curious skill, Valkyrie Summon, calls forth a legendary warrior based on his own pure and powerful attributes. This was the legacy 𝒏𝒍𝒔 left behind. Suddenly, the air shifts. A prompt flickers in front of him. Summon the Valkyrie, yes or no. Obviously, he is not turning that down. As soon as he accepts, brilliant spirals of blue light begin to tear through the air with incredible force. A shimmering portal rips open right in front of him. He stands there, completely stunned by the magic unfolding. Within the blinding beams of light, a graceful female silhouette slowly begins to take a physical form. The energy is overwhelming, making it hard to even look. Then, the Valkyrie stands before him and speaks one word, Lord. You and I saw that coming, but Alistair is left completely speechless. He checks the system, eyes wide in disbelief. It turns out he even gets to choose a name for her. Looking closer, her status window is weirdly empty. No weapons, no armor, just a blank slate. She explains that as her master, it is his job to fill those slots. Any gear he gives her will instantly be equipped. It is a bit strange, but he understands the mission now. He activates his subspace, and a glowing red portal cracks open. Alistair leans in, frantically digging through his stash for something valuable. The Valkyrie waits patiently, standing still for her master to return with new orders. Back in the ruins of the city, the Valkyrie looks much more formidable now, fully decked out in heavy armor. The gear isn't exactly her style, but Alistair asks her to bear with him for now. Checking the system again, he spots some empty slots and quickly adds a pair of enchanted boots. He admits he does not have much gear designed for women, then turns back to the interface to see the results. Her name field is still a total blank, and he ponders what to actually call her. He asks what her original name was. She tells him her previous master, 𝒏𝒍𝒔, simply used to call her Jean. But Alistair is not a fan. He definitely prefers names that sound a bit more common and familiar. The Valkyrie reveals that Jean was actually the name of 𝒏𝒍𝒔's beloved younger sister. Alistair freezes. He had no idea 𝒏𝒍𝒔 even had a sister, and this news hits him hard. Suddenly, old memories flood back. He remembers the dying man's final, desperate plea begging Alistair to find his long-lost family. 𝒏𝒍𝒔 had handed him a worn photo, asking him to protect them if they were still alive out there. That was a sacred promise. If he breaks it, he knows he will never find peace, even in the afterlife. The sun had long since dipped below the horizon, leaving the sky heavy with dark, rolling clouds. So what do you and I take from this? He names her Sarah for now, and together, their epic journey into the unknown continues. All right, you and I are about to see what happens when Julian gets a divine Seraphina. He needs to know if he should bark out commands every time they clash, or if she can act on her own. Julian's orders take priority during the toughest raids, but she is fully capable of reacting to any sudden shift in the battle. With sharp curiosity, he asks what kind of combat style Sir Alistair usually preferred. Under her old master, she was a frontline defender. Julian immediately calls for the magical map to manifest right in front of him. Scanning the surrounding terrain, he wonders if they should test their teamwork on a monster. Nearby, a beast wanders calmly through the kingdom. Suddenly, Julian appears right in its path, ready for a bloody showdown. Unlike Sir Alistair, Julian needs her to provide lethal backup rather than just holding a shield. Hovering through the air, she acknowledges his command and begins charging her holy weapon. Seraphina knows the risks, understanding that the divine right can restore her if she falls. From the ground, Julian orders her to focus entirely on dealing massive damage. Watch closely. The training ends and the real carnage begins. Meanwhile, Julian stays low, bracing himself behind his heavy steel shield. He gives her clear instructions to strike with lightning flash the moment he signals. It seems Seraphina can instantly process any complex order he throws her way. Sensing the monster's lunge, Julian adjusts his defensive stance. With a sudden leap, he triggers his lightning flash. In a blink, he is standing behind the massive creature. He follows up with Mountain Split, deciding it is the perfect strike for this exact moment. With his gear efficiency boosts now pushing past 100%, he realizes he does not even need to hold the beast's focus for long anymore. He launches a shield bash at terrifying speed, slamming the heavy metal right into the monster's ugly face. Right then, he signals Seraphina to unleash her prepared attack. The Valkyrie rockets forward at max speed, ready to drive her spear home with lightning flash. She is already in position behind the beast. With a roar, she swings her spear in a brutal mountain split. The monster's eyes nearly bulge out of its head, as agonizing pain ripples through its entire body. That combo was more than enough to end the fight. They watch as the beast slowly fades into nothingness. You and I both know that look. Julian finally feels ready to take on Tier 4 rifts. Walking through the Thorn District, he discovers Seraphina still has emotions. Before her rebirth, she was human. Valkyries are souls chosen from fallen worlds for their incredible feats in their past lives. As the system relays her tragic history, Julian begins to understand the heavy burden she carries. Arriving at his destination, he spots a girl with short hair and glasses. Julian asks for entry, mentioning he is here because of rumors about a legendary master craftsman. But the girl says they are not taking orders. Her expression shifts the second Julian mentions he wants legendary tier gear. She looks at him in pure shock and asks him to repeat himself. He has materials from Tier 2 monsters and wants custom equipment made from them. The girl is completely floored, wondering how a young warrior like him got his hands on Tier 2 items. He stays silent about his source, threatening to leave. Realizing she is being too nosy, the girl quickly apologizes for her prying. The order is specific: a set of armor for himself, a female set, and portable shields. Crunching the numbers, the craftswoman asks for the woman's specific body measurements. Julian tells her she is about 170 centimeters tall. But when the girl asks for the bust size, he desperately waits for Seraphina's response. His face turns bright red as he awkwardly guesses her size is a B. With the vital stats recorded, the employee finally has everything she needs to begin. Since these are Tier 2 materials, the crafting process will take about 5 months to complete. His current gear will suffice for now, especially with 6 months until the next major rift appears. Julian reaches out and seals the deal, handing over all the rare materials required for this truly massive production project. Before leaving, he asks about Dabney's Inquisition. The girl gives him the best route to find the guild. As he walks away, she cannot help but wonder what he is really searching for. And that's where we leave it. Trust me, you're going to want to see who's waiting behind that gate. Stick with me, we're starting with Alistair, who asks why he's being visited without even looking up. Silently, the visitor named Troy simply places a worn-out photograph on the wooden table. Dropping his paper, the detective hears the man's request to find the girl in the picture. Her name was Alina, a young woman with long brown hair who had vanished. 1 week later, inside a high-end training hall, 2 elite warriors prepare their weapons for a lethal duel. Midair, the girl switches her heavy shield into a lethal offensive mode. The blow lands squarely on the monster's face. Seraphina shouts that this is the perfect opening for her master to strike. Right then, he lunges forward, tapping into the raw power of his lightning flash ability. With his mountain splitter technique, he rips through the beast's hide. A system notification flashes, confirming the hunt was a total success to his absolute delight. The hunt took 8 hours and 20 minutes. Still, he knew that pace wouldn't be enough to survive. Earlier training sessions took over 10 hours, so this was actually a massive step forward for him. But Alistair knew a legend like Vance could wipe out 10 rank 10 sea monsters in under an hour. Seraphina worried for her master, begging him not to be so reckless and impatient. She notes that he is constantly evolving by fusing his powers together. Checking the system interface, he sees a brand new skill appearing on the screen, the legendary War Master ability. It was a lethal combo created by merging perfect defender with the perfect attacker trait. After a week of testing, he realized these combined abilities either evolve into something new or fuse completely. Now watch this part. He informs Seraphina about a sudden gate opening in the district of Silverton. The goal was simple /hunting times to prepare for the coming storm. Hearing the command, his Valkyrie companion understands the assignment perfectly and prepares for battle. Moments later, he takes a call from Detective Thorne over at the agency. The detective was already waiting outside the building, desperate to have a word with the young man. Alistair turns around, wondering why the meeting was so urgent. The two sit down for a coffee to talk. Thorne brings up the outlawed knights hiding in the Forsaken Lands. Most were rogue warriors who hunted innocent people to sell them off as slaves to the highest bidder. But our hero didn't see how these criminals were connected to the girl he was hunting. The detective believed Alina and her family were likely being held as slaves by these ruthless outlaws. Alistair is completely floored by this revelation and demands to know the reason behind the suspicion. Thorne explains the girl's family recently lived in Oakhaven, a town that was now part of the deadly red zone. Even so, nothing could be confirmed with absolute certainty without a boots-on-the-ground investigation. Yesterday, an informant spotted a group of bandits hiding out in Oakhaven. He didn't have the exact coordinates yet, but he was confident he could find their hideout very soon. He planned to keep digging throughout the entire dangerous region. He hands the family photo back to Alistair. Naturally, the boy's eyes drift right to Alina's smiling face. As night falls over the city, Alistair returns home to check on his younger siblings. Seeing their faces always makes him smile. After hearing they studied all day, he tells them they've earned a special reward. Meanwhile, a kind woman tells them she is busy finishing up dinner. With a warm smile, she promises to serve the meal soon. Alistair was stunned by the massive feast she had prepared. Shortly after, he asks young Leo about the new nanny they hired. "You and I saw this coming, right?" The boy explains he really likes her because the house is finally spotless and the food is always delicious. Mia adds that the nanny plays with them and even helps them with all their difficult schoolwork. Impressed, our hero had no clue the nanny was doing so much. Soon, she tells them it was time for her to head home. Before leaving, she asks if there's anything else they need, waiting anxiously for his answer. Alistair looks closely at the girl, scanning her from head to toe. They stand in total silence. It was supposed to be Clara's final day at the job. So, the hero asks if she would consider extending her contract even further. With a small smile, she says she'd rather be hired as a regular, full-time employee. He gets excited and accepts her proposal instantly. The association president was the one who hired the nanny, who was much younger than expected. The girl explains that her family's situation was bad, so she decided to work with kids instead. Finding a decent job was nearly impossible lately. Besides that, Clara had her own personal reasons for taking the position. So what do you and I make of this mystery? Her true intentions remain a complete secret. Stick with me, we're about to see how a simple meeting sparks an epic legend. She reveals her sister protected the young lord's siblings. Stunned, the boy can hardly wrap his mind around this sudden truth. She thanks him for his protection, explaining her family is all she has. Now, the main character finally understands her true motives. 2 weeks ago, she saw his name on a contract from her old guild and knew she had to act. That connection allowed her to explain the situation and reach out to the House Lord. Trembling, she asks if her past is an issue, promising she can handle any task given to her. She starts rambling, begging for a chance to prove her worth, but the main character stays calm and focuses on the contract. Welcome to the 6th most powerful faction in the kingdom, the grand headquarters of House Myra. Inside the High Council chamber, several noblemen in fine suits are deep in tense negotiations. Lord Alistair, heir to House Myra, presents his father's bold plan to establish a new knight's order. This was an ambitious project entrusted to Alistair, and he was desperate to impress his father with elite recruits. Everyone knew the order needed legendary names like Sir Cedric, Lady Alara, or the mighty Lord Barrett. It was a near impossible task, since the greatest warriors were already bound to rival factions, but Alistair wanted results. The room fell silent as the advisors struggled to find a way to make it happen. Now pay attention here. This is where a young supervisor named Harold decides to speak up. He claimed to know of a hidden talent, someone with power equal to the legends they just mentioned. At those words, the young lord leaned in, suddenly very interested in what Harold had to say. With pure determination, he speaks the name they all knew from the rumors, the unbound knight, Sir Julian. Alistair loves the idea of recruiting a hero who killed 5 high-tier monsters alone. The publicity for their house would be massive. Standing from his throne, the young lord praises Harold's sharp and ambitious way of thinking. He immediately starts mocking the older advisors for having such dull minds compared to the brilliant young supervisor. He slams his hand on the table, forcing everyone in the room to look his way. Lord Alistair reminds them that Julian is currently tied to the Royal Association, making a guild contract very difficult. Harold already knew that, which was exactly why every other major house had already given up on the man. Despite the massive legal hurdles, the young man believed they could win him over and was willing to risk everything. The Lord watched the young advisor closely, admiring the fire and hunger in his eyes. They began plotting how to lure Sir Julian to their side. Meanwhile, deep in the cursed woods, things were getting terrifying. Suddenly, a massive beast emerges from the shadows, radiating a suffocating aura of pure power. The monster's savage eyes locked onto its next meal, while Julian searched for the strongest foe to test his strength. With a thunderous leap, the green monstrosity lunges forward like a falling star about to explode. You and I can see it now. He feels the pressure, draws his blade, and summons his guardian spirit, Seraphina. Her spectral form manifests, glowing with raw energy. This was the perfect chance to test the skills they had been refining. Without a moment of hesitation, Seraphina charges straight into the fray against the terrifying beast. She blocks a heavy blow with her shield and counters with a strike that rattles the monster's skull. The creature staggers, completely off balance. This was Julian's signal to unleash his new lightning blink technique. In a flash, he teleports right behind the brute before it can even blink. Above them, Seraphina hovers in the air. The monster is trapped between 2 deadly threats. Together, they prepare to unleash their ultimate move, the Mountain Splitter. Their blades rain down on the beast's thick hide. The entire battle lasts just 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Looking at the fallen beast, the warrior realizes his training has finally made him a true powerhouse. As the two catch their breath, the air begins to distort and hum with ancient, mystical energy. Julian is confused, but Seraphina realizes a rare treasure dungeon portal is tearing open right in front of them. She had explored these hidden realms before and knew they held artifacts of unimaginable power. In fact, the very enchanted gear Julian was wearing now had been forged from treasures found in a similar place. These gates appear once in a lifetime, so they had to dive in before the path closed forever. And trust me, you and I are about to witness their greatest discovery yet. All right, you and I are heading deep into the Whispering Maze, where a mysterious energy is calling. Sir Alistair doesn't waste a second, pulling up his enchanted map to find the way. It's a full-blown labyrinth, and Alistair is lucky he has that map skill. Meanwhile, Lady Sarah starts feeling like she might be a bit out of her league. But hey, having a Valkyrie is always a win. He checks the ancient records for info. The target, the Vault of Fallen Realms. It's a graveyard for artifacts and powers from worlds that have already been completely wiped out. Sir Alistair smells a trap, though. He knows this place has security. Suddenly, he freezes and tells Sarah to stop moving. Now watch this. One wrong move and he's dead. That floor looks normal, but it's actually a massive pitfall. But Alistair isn't going to play games with individual tiles. He draws his legendary blade and decides to clear the entire path with one massive, explosive swing. The ground shatters into a bottomless abyss. Now, the two can just walk across the remaining beams safely. The map tracks them perfectly. A hidden arrow flies out, but Alistair blocks it easily with his shield. They push deeper into the twisting maze. In the next hall, a giant stone boulder chases them as the rooms start shifting. He cracks open a chest and scores 2 essence shards and a rare rift keystone generator. They keep moving, and Lady Sarah uses her levitation to keep a nasty green slime away from Alistair. The maze feels endless, but finally, they step into a room that looks totally different. It's massive and weirdly quiet, with no traps in sight. No treasure chest here, only a book. The first one is an item, and the second is a new skill. Alistair reaches for the tome, but a massive shockwave blasts him back with a requirements not met warning. Before he can figure it out, a green shadow creeps out from the corners. They both turn toward the mysterious voice. "You saw that too, right? It's Barnaby the Golden Goblin, and Sarah actually recognizes this little guy." Barnaby remembers Lady Sarah from when she served the previous hero. Alistair asks if he should just kill him. The goblin just laughs. Killing him won't get them the book or any other rewards. Alistair just wants that book, and the path forward is actually pretty simple. The goblin just has to give permission. His whole job is helping the Soul Covenant's second user power up as fast as possible. Alistair is suspicious, but Barnaby explains that while anyone can enter the maze, only the chosen user can meet him. Right then, it hits him that he isn't just dealing with some common garden goblin. The previous master created him, using a power that rivals the Soul Covenant itself. Alistair is dying to know more about this power of creation and the secrets it holds. But these are questions that the young knight will have to find answers for on his own. Moving on, Sir Alistair gets back to requesting permission to take that mysterious ancient book. But wait, the goblin starts rummaging through his clothes, giving him 2 choices before he opens the treasure. He pulls out 2 bags. Option 1, pick 2 out of 5 legendary skills. Option 2 is picking one of the 3 main powers used by the previous hero. Alistair realizes he could inherit King Valerius's legendary abilities, since the transfer of power is now final. But Lady Sarah warns that Valerius never trusted him. She begs Alistair not to fall for any of Barnaby's clever traps. Suddenly, the entire giant hall goes deathly silent. The goblin pushes for the legendary skills. Alistair asks if the last guy took the deal. Barnaby says Valerius relied only on himself. Alistair also needs to know exactly what the conditions are to activate the vault treasure. And trust me, the requirement to unlock this vault is the second awakening of the second chosen user. All right, you and I are watching Cedric realize why Silas kept quiet about this before his second awakening. With a wicked grin, the creature asks if there are any more lingering doubts. Now it forces the young knight to choose 2 legendary skills on one side and Sir Alistair's ancient power on the other. Cedric didn't need to think twice. He knew exactly what he was after. In the end, he points directly at the bag containing the former master's skills. The imp is baffled, clearly wanting him to pick the flashier legendary option instead. For Cedric, one of Sir Alistair's old abilities was worth more than anything else. Despite the shock, the familiar accepts the choice and reveals the full list of skills. Now pay attention, because the pages of this book are literally overflowing with raw divine energy. The skill Giant's Descent was a transformation type that required a special crystal record. Through his research, he learns he could grow to massive sizes with the strength of monsters. With the right records, 8 allies could be enhanced, provided they were completely loyal to gain creature, like power. With that size, the team could easily crush any monster in their path. Though he kept a straight face, the boy knew he had found something incredible. Turning away, he feels the energy surging everywhere. They quickly cross the portal, leaving the imp far behind. As they vanish, the creature whispers a wish for the young man to keep growing. Once he reached his peak, he would finally be ready to grasp the power of creation and become whole. Meanwhile, night falls over the capital. Cedric and his siblings share a quiet meal with their nanny. His mind is racing, stuck on everything that happened and that incredibly suspicious little imp. Deep down, he had a gut feeling that the creature was hiding something dangerous. Suddenly, his sister snaps him out of his trance. He quickly tries to rejoin their conversation. The little girl wanted permission to visit the grand summer fair and bring Beatrice along. Her eyes light up when mentioning the nanny. Leo agreed instantly, as he absolutely adored the lady. However, Cedric worried the nanny wasn't getting enough rest during her weekends away from work. Beatrice didn't mind at all, insisting she loved the fair and often visited such places on her own. At that moment, Alara becomes overjoyed, knowing the nanny would be joining their little family outing. The children clearly had a deep bond with her, loving all the attention she gave them. You see, while everything looks peaceful outside, the lights in the High Lord's office are still burning. That was the head of House Sterling, Lord Kim. Apprehensive, he gives tips to his son who led the project. He takes a swing on his private green, but the ball sails wide and misses the hole. Despite the hour, the son needed his father's help to fix his failing plans for the guild. The young lord explains his recruit was already loyal to the main association. The old lord continues his game, realizing his son was actually hunting an irregular knight. Julian Sterling advises his father that it is better to measure their strength than to rush in blindly. The biggest hurdle in recruiting Cedric was that ironclad contract he had with the crown. The old lord decides a secret meeting is necessary. Raising his club, he warns his son to do whatever it takes to secure the boy or face the consequences for failing the house. Fail this mission, and he would be stripped of his title immediately. At the Royal Summer Fair, the crowds are cheering and enjoying the massive magic rides. Beatrice walks through the gates holding hands with Alara and Leo, while Cedric follows close behind. His younger brother is practically vibrating with excitement at the chance to try all the attractions. The nanny asks which magical ride they should visit first. With sparkling eyes, Leo points toward the giant coaster. Meanwhile, the young girl is scanning every corner of the festive park. After a moment, she chooses the swinging Viking ship. Finally, Beatrice asks what Cedric wants to do. Caught off guard, he just blurts out the gyro drop without even thinking about it. Hearing that, Leo ditches his coaster plans just to ride the drop with his big brother. And that's where we leave them, happy, knowing they have the whole glorious day ahead of them together to enjoy. Stick with me, we're following a legendary knight who's finally taking a break. He'd spent years fighting monsters away from his family, so this quiet day with his siblings was worth every second. Suddenly, a group of stern men in formal armor approaches. Alistair watches them, his face twisting into a look of pure confusion. That many high-level guards could only mean one thing: a true VIP was nearby. Martha gasps as she recognizes the figure. It is Lord Alaric, the heir to the Sterling house, the most powerful merchant family in the kingdom. Now, our hero finally realizes just how high-stakes this encounter is. Now watch closely. Alistair recognizes a face that's destined to bring the whole kingdom to its knees. Meanwhile, a bear-masked assassin receives grim orders regarding his new target. His mission: infiltrate the grounds and eliminate the Lord, his son, and all 5 guards. While commoners play, the killer blends in, scanning for threats. Alistair rushes over to buy 4 passes for the 2 adults and children. The enchanted plaza is massive, filled with magical clockwork rides. Up on the dragon coaster, the kids are having the time of their lives. Meanwhile, the adults are absolutely terrified and can't relax. Next up is the Great Galleon, a massive, swinging wooden ship. Once again, the little ones are loving every single second of the adventure. At this point, our legendary hero feels like his soul is being drained. They move on to the next attraction, a towering ride that shoots straight into the clouds. Arthur and Alara are beaming with joy, unable to hide their excitement. But the adults, they're suffering through every drop, looking scared of everything. Commoners continue to flood the plaza, enjoying the festive atmosphere all around. They decide to take a break for some food before continuing. The roasted poultry and sweet pastries look incredible, and everyone is starving. Martha orders the kids' favorites, while Alistair tries to steal a moment of rest. Fighting monsters was easier than keeping up with these two. Suddenly, he notices something off. The elite guards protecting the Lord have vanished from sight. The Lord sits on a bench, reading a scroll while his young son looks around with wide, curious eyes. It seems the busy father isn't paying any attention to the boy. Alistair gets annoyed, realizing the hidden guards are hovering right next to them, making the whole vibe incredibly tense. You and I saw that coming. Alistair senses a shift in the air and scans for danger. Alara is busy munching on a pastry right in front of him. In the crowded court, everything looks peaceful and safe. The animal disguises are gone now. From a high stone tower, two shadowy figures watch the plaza through enchanted glass lenses, tracking every movement. They're double-checking to see if their deadly reconnaissance was actually flawless. That's when they spot him, the legendary rogue knight, Alistair, sitting right next to their mark. It seems the assassin's partner has no idea how dangerous he is. This is a massive, unexpected variable that could ruin their entire assassination plot. Still, he doesn't seem connected to the target. One assassin asks if they should abort or change the mission parameters immediately. There is no turning back now, but they better be ready for a fight to the death. Orders fly out, watch the targets in yellow and blue, while the elite mercenary named Green handles the guards. Finally, Agents Black and Purple are assigned to finish off the Lord once and for all. Arthur is thrilled with his meal since he loves roasted chicken. Suddenly, he spots someone interesting sitting nearby. It's a lonely boy around his age, sitting at a massive table without a single friend in sight. Arthur stares at him, waiting for any kind of reaction. A moment later, the boy silently meets his gaze. He reaches out and offers a piece of crispy chicken, telling him it's the best. Usually, he'd eat it all himself, but he's happy to share. Suspicious, the boy hesitates to take the food. Fearing a potential poison threat, the royal guards immediately step in. With a cold glare, the guard snaps that it's forbidden to speak to the young master, let alone offer him food. Arthur blushes, apologizing for the trouble. Seeing the armored guards scolding his little brother, Alistair stands up, his eyes narrowing with cold intent. He can't believe these idiots have the audacity to bully a child. But the guards don't like his tone, claiming he's being far too disrespectful. Suddenly, the Lord speaks up, telling his guards to calm down and realize this is just a misunderstanding. Lord Alaric introduces himself, offering a sincere apology for his overzealous security team's behavior. Alistair greets him, noticing he isn't gifted. The Lord asks Cedric to say hello. Trust me, you and I need to see where this alliance goes. Stick with me. You and I are about to see a young noble beau before his father, while William invites them to share a meal. Lord Arthur accepts with a warm smile, making our hero realize that these elite figures aren't as cold as he first imagined. The young heirs gather round the table with Lady Alina to begin sharing their feast together. Across the table, Lord Arthur explains that his son Tristan follows a strict diet and rarely touches common street food. Once a month, he summons master chefs from distant empires across the sea just to prepare a single meal for the boy. The hero smiles at their immense wealth, but suddenly spits out his wine. He realizes the Lord thinks he is the Lady Alina's husband, and these children are his own. Quickly clearing up the mess, he explains that the little ones are actually just his younger siblings. Furthermore, the woman with the long hair is simply the governess hired for the estate. Confused, the Lord cannot believe our hero would visit the royal fairgrounds with only the governess. He accepts it once he hears how much the siblings adore her, though Arthur's strange smile feels a bit unsettling and annoying. Seeing the hour grow late, he calls for Tristan to depart, even though the boy is clearly enjoying the food and his new companions. Elias begs the boy to return so they can play again. Tristan waves goodbye, following his father toward the castle gates while promising to meet once more. While shadows watch their every move from the darkness, Lord Arthur notices that his son looks deeply troubled and sad. Curious, he asks if the young boy lacks any true friends at his academy. With a heavy heart, Tristan admits he doubts his friends are real since he is the heir to the powerful Silverthorn dynasty. His father scoffs at the idea, lecturing him on the harsh hierarchy of noble life before admitting that true friendship is often just a grand illusion. Now pay attention. A masked assassin in black suddenly starts closing in on the two of them. The killer draws a gleaming blade, ready for blood, as Tristan points toward the threat to warn his unsuspecting father. From the right, a fresh threat emerges with cold steel. From the left, another thug creeps closer and closer. Desperately, he calls for Captain Garrett, who stands ready to protect his masters from the coming strike. Sensing the ambush, the guards know they must protect the Lord at all costs. They draw their weapons instantly, prepared for a brutal fight. The thugs begin to close the circle, surrounding their royal targets from every single side. The icy glares of the killers prove their goal is total slaughter. Terrified, Tristan huddles close to his father's legs for safety. Lord Arthur looks on with pure despair filling his eyes. Meanwhile, back at the table, the hero's family is finishing their peaceful meal. Young 𝒂𝒐𝒏𝒚 was such a fan of the feast that his belly is already completely full from eating so much. To the boy, it was the finest meal in the entire kingdom. Now he is determined to play once more with Tristan. However, his older brother steps in to inform him that playing further simply will not be possible. Tristan came to these fairgrounds to bond with his father after a long time apart, and they must cherish this moment. The young boy slowly begins to understand. You and I saw this coming, right? A sudden explosion of noise sends the crowd running in terror as cries of murder ring out. Lady Elinor stands frozen, completely confused by the chaos erupting around them. Sir Thorn looks around sharply, scanning for any hidden threats. Without wasting a second, they rise from the table and prepare to flee the area. Our hero realizes the only logical move is to escape these fairgrounds before the violence reaches their position. William claims he cannot run and begs his brother to use his monstrous strength to strike down the assassins nearby. However, the hero knows the royal guard will arrive shortly to handle the situation themselves. Therefore, there is no reason for him to interfere, even if the young boy believes his help is needed. Meanwhile, the child keeps pleading with his brother to stop the villains. Lady Elinor agrees as she draws closer to them. She asks our hero to defend the innocent until the royal guard arrives. She reassures him, promising that she will keep 𝒂𝒑𝒏𝒚 and the others safe. The manor guards fall one by one, powerless against the brutal assassin strike. Though his hands tremble, Captain Garrett is still determined to protect his lord. The fire in his eyes reflects the absolute rage burning in his soul. Spotting the different colors of their tunics, he realizes these are the feared Prism Guild. He cannot fathom why they would target a simple lord when they usually hunt high-level mages. The assassin in black replies that such rumors are a total lie. Until this very moment, they had only been hired to eliminate powerful, gifted individuals. A dual strike pierces Captain Garrett. As he collapses to the dirt, the killer coldly states that they never discriminate when a murder contract is signed. In that dark moment, the Lord realizes that someone else must have ordered this execution. The killer stomps on the captain, blade ready. Trust me, you and I are going to be on edge until the next episode. All right, stick with me as this boy clings to his father, while a lethal blade swings toward his head with terrifying speed. With a sudden heroic leap, Cedric dives into the heart of the nightmare to stop the horrible tragedy from ever happening. He shields the father and son, determined to prevent this. Ever since meeting these two, he had felt a very strange connection. Young Arthur looks on with total excitement, realizing they have just been saved by a true champion of the kingdom. The Black Knight realizes they have massive problems ahead. Suddenly, his wicked weapon begins to materialize within his iron grip. Sensing a real fight, the bandit reports the interference. Meanwhile, the Lord realizes the man he was speaking with is actually a high-level magical anomaly. He makes his intentions clear to everyone. He only stepped in to protect that innocent child from their cold, sharp blades. He tells the pair to find a safer place immediately. Seeing them move, one of the bandits starts charging toward them. Cedric tracks the threat with precision. He lunges toward the Red Knight, delivering a powerful blow that echoes through the air. He shouts for the two to run as fast as possible. There were still 4 deadly enemies left to take down. With a confident smile, he makes a quick joke, daring any of the Prism Knights to try and run away. Our hero mocks their name, laughing at how their rainbow colors do not complement each other at all in this fight. Fuming with irritation, the lead black agent demands to know why this young man is interfering with their secret mission. Now pay attention, because we're about to see what a true hero looks like as he unleashes his hidden power, showing everyone what justice really means. A massive magical shield erupts in the festival grounds. Soon after, he activates his mimicry talent on the group of bandits. Brilliant light floods the entire environment, surging through their bodies like a celestial current of pure, raw magical energy. His arcane system blazes to life, revealing his newest acquisitions. These dark powers feel eerily similar to things he witnessed before. Completely confused, he pauses to think for a moment about the strange things that were happening right in front of him. He quickly believes this man is the very person he has been searching for. On his direct command, everyone prepares to take down the single enemy standing in the middle. The yellow and purple knights combine their forces, aiming for a powerful double attack meant to crush the hero instantly. But Cedric is extremely fast and skilled, managing to dodge both. With a powerful jump, he vaults his body into the air. Before anyone can even track his intentions, he manages to deliver a crushing kick right to one of his opponent's faces. Gaining momentum, he spins his body and hits the other bandit who was not expecting it. Now only 2 opponents remain. The Green Knight is extremely confused upon seeing that yellow has fallen. He tries to use a threatening tone of voice. You and I both know these guys are lucky he's holding back, or their heads would be rolling across the grass already, ending this fight in a heartbeat. However, he admits he came slightly unprepared, since it was supposed to be a simple outing with his younger siblings today. Lastly, he states that he will not kill these bandits. Instead, he would give them one last chance to save themselves. Sir Cedric was offering them a choice, holding their lives in the palm of his very capable and powerful hands. They can either continue facing him or take their fallen comrades and leave. Now the bandits have a difficult decision ahead. The Purple Knight tries to stand, but is trembling. The lead knight tells him not to believe a single word spoken. The Green Knight agrees, knowing they must fight to keep their credibility. They decide to stand together against their lone enemy. But Cedric states that they will never come out victorious anyway, because they simply cannot handle a man of his level. At that moment, the leader realizes they must retreat, leaving their mission behind for now before things get even worse. It was not the time for ego. Everyone must follow the captain's commands and move out of the area immediately. Even so, the Green Knight glares in disagreement. Smiling, our protagonist realized that his victory was guaranteed from the start. While they help each other up, the men exchange intense glances. Turning his back, the leader says he will play fair. Finally, he asks that they never meet again. Shortly after, a person starts running toward the scene in a total desperation. Lord Sterling arrives, looking completely frantic and shouting that the hero should not have let those dangerous men escape his justice. He argues that his decisions were not wise, as a fight to the death could have easily caused mass destruction that would have certainly extended to every innocent civilian in the area. Cedric just bets that this bloodbath was not what the rich lord actually wanted for his beautiful kingdom and family. Suddenly, many more royal guards appear on the scene, worried about their master's safety after the terrifying attack ended. One of them tries to check if the lord is all right, claiming they arrived as quickly as their horses could go. However, the lord is extremely irritated that the men arrived far too late. Embarrassed, the knights do not even respond. An old man bows low, and apologizes for the delay that could have resulted in a total catastrophe for the family. And honestly, you and I just saw a legend born, as he points out the hero who saved his family from certain death. All right, you and I are diving into a world where a simple park hides dark secrets. Tomorrow, the sun shines bright. Back at the manor, Arthur spots something fascinating. His mind drifts to the Prism Syndicate, realizing Black was an old contact. Honestly, he couldn't grasp why those bandits acted that way since they weren't typical villains. Memories of past rewards flood back, yet the timing of the next rift openings remains a complete mystery. Still, no new portals appear. He calls out for his friend Charles, who picks up the phone right away. Arthur checks in, but his buddy is swamped. If he were free, they'd be grabbing drinks and catching up properly. Fast forward, and a dozen bottles are already empty. The two sit together, trading stories and life updates late into the night. Arthur notices something is off with the way Charles is drinking. Getting worried, he asks if everything is fine, seeing how miserable Charles looks. The man struggles, clearly not knowing how to start. Out of nowhere, he drops a bombshell. His guild is merging with another house. Turns out, these corporate negotiations have been dragging on for way too long. High-tier knights with second awakenings got better deals, but first awakening fighters like him, they're getting their contracts slashed to the bone. Basically, they were just trying to save as much coin as possible by cutting staff costs. If he didn't sign the new measures, his contract was dead. So now, Charles is stuck hunting in teams while desperately searching for a new mercenary company. Boiling with rage, he crushes his tankard flat. It is clear they treated him like absolute garbage the whole time. That is when Arthur realizes this drink wasn't just a hangout, it was a desperate vent session. Charles admits he needed the strongest ale possible, and Arthur was the only person he could truly trust. Seeing his friend in pain, our protagonist's playful smirk suddenly turns serious. He changes the subject, telling Charles to stop worrying and join his own mercenary band instead. Charles realizes his friend means the secret group he's been building. Arthur always wanted him, but respected his old guild too much to ask. Even with the offer, Charles doesn't seem very convinced. It feels weird to him. Officially, there is a leader and vice leader, but their friendship wouldn't change at all. Though he's hesitant at first, Charles finally gives in and decides to accept his best friend's bold request. Arthur lets out a laugh, while Charles warns him not to act like a boss. Watch this closely. When that relic starts glowing, you know something big is coming. At that moment, the artifact on the table erupts with light. Blown back by the sheer brilliance, Arthur notices the relic is physically transforming. From across the room, Charles hears a strange hum. The reward is finally activating, signaling a gate has opened nearby. Checking the system, he sees 3 distinct dungeons with different threat levels. They will activate in 3 days. He could enter one now, leaving 2 more for later exploration. Wasting no time, he summons Seraphina, the Valkyrie, who appears before her master. With ranks from F to D, he weighs his options, but they all look easy. He knows he can solo any of these. Seraphina suggests a scenario where 2 first awakening warriors should lead the charge together. With a look of fire, he chooses the highest rank since it promises much better loot. I know what you're thinking. Arthur looks totally crazy right now, talking to thin air, right? He picks up the phone, dialing his loyal subordinate Cedric on the other end. He barks a command for his man to get to the office immediately. Something big is finally going down. Cedric rushes through the door, ready and waiting for his master's orders. The boss announces that Charles is joining their mercenary company today. Everyone is stoked to finally be on the same team. Looking confused, the young man asks what the boss was hinting at earlier. Arthur warns that the real surprise is separate, then commands Seraphina to reveal herself. The men stand frozen in shock as the Valkyrie appears in her stunning, divine battle armor. From this moment on, Seraphina will serve as the mercenary group's vice leader. She smiles, thanking her master and introducing herself. The guys are just standing there, completely lost for words. Moments later, they are both absolutely floored by her ethereal beauty. And that is where we leave them. Trust me, things are only going to get crazier. Lady Jane has nothing on Seraphina. All right, you and I are starting today with Lord Tristan dropping a massive bombshell secret. Turns out he is not just a vanguard. His knights are stunned, but he doubles down on the truth. Most call him a deviant because he doesn't fit the mold of any normal hero. Think of him as a multi-class powerhouse. Originally, he was just a vanguard and slayer, but his second awakening unlocked a terrifying range of legendary new abilities. Cedric looks absolutely blown away by everything this deviant hero can actually do. Sir Alaric tries to quiet the lad, dying to hear the rest of the explanation. Tristan is only sharing this because he wants them to join his journey. Since they are family now, he knows it is better if they all level up together. Confused about the plan, Cedric asks where exactly they are heading. Watch this. Tristan opens the system, and a gateway to a rank dungeon manifests right before them. Without hesitation, our hero steps toward the portal as a crimson light floods the entire room. Desperate and confused, the two knights cannot grasp what is happening as raw energy tears a hole through reality itself. Tristan explains this as a dungeon gate. He will lead the charge, followed closely by his two loyal and confused subordinates. They cannot believe their eyes, looking more baffled with every passing second. They beg their master to slow down and explain things. Alaric feels sweat dripping down his face, his nerves absolutely frayed. While they are stressing, Tristan and Sarah have already stepped through. Wild right. The system confirms a second original user is inside, which means the rewards are about to skyrocket. Seeing her master knows nothing about red orcs, the Valkyrie begins a quick briefing. These red orcs were legendary monsters from Sarah's own world, back during the Great Demon War. They were the ultimate predators. They might not threaten Lord Tristan, but anyone else nearby really needs to be extremely careful. That is it for now. If you want to see what happens next, hit that notification bell. You and I will see each other next time.